kids to bed, dads are home. We are the Dad World Order podcast, representing the DWO. I am your main man, Mr. Magnificent, Mike Martin. With me, as always, my tag team partner, Big Rig, Eric Maffey.
What's going on? Actually, we gotta switch ourselves,
Start
Mike.
over.
What are you doing?
Yeah, I know. Start over.
I'm not Mr. Magnificent. You botched that to crap, man. Well, as Mr. Magnificent Mike Martin said, we are the Dad World Order podcast, and joining us today, BJ Whitmer, who former ROH star for a very long time, and current producer for All Elite Wrestling. So, BJ, I'm going to start off with the first question, probably the most important.
Okay.
How the heck are you?
I'm good. Can't complain.
All right.
Yeah. How about you guys? Everybody
We're
doing good?
Doing all right.
Mighty fine.
Awesome.
Mighty fine.
Awesome.
Mighty fine. So, I guess, BJ, my first question really, besides after that one, would be, how in the heck did you get from the guy that I knew in high school, 1996, Campbell County High School, to, I mean, I had heard rumblings of you becoming a wrestler, and the next thing I know, I see this indie show up in Dayton, and you're on this card, and I literally know nobody else on this card but you. And I'm like, let's go. We go up there. I'm with, I don't even know who the hell I was with at this point. I got 2 shows in Dayton, and they absolutely just blew my mind. I had never had any experience with that kind of wrestling. My experience, I've loved wrestling since I was a kid, eating cereal on Saturday mornings, watching it.
Yeah.
But that was just a whole different brand. And I mean, at the time, I was in my 20s, so, it was right on par with stuff I would like. It was Samoa Joe and CM Punk, and, I got you had a little more hair back then, but
a lot more
jacked
hair.
up version of this guy that used to drive a red Mustang around Alexandria. So
Yeah. Campbell County High School class of 96. I believe you were 98. Right.
Yes.
I graduated with your cousin, Matt. Used to run around with Matt all the time. Like you, as a kid growing up, wrestling was on Saturday mornings. So you get up, get a bowl of cereal, sit right down in front of the TV. And I can remember like the Crockett stuff, the Mid-Atlantic stuff was on like channel. I think it was the CBS channel. I think WWF at the time, like Superstars of Challenge, was on like the NBC affiliate. I can remember on channel 64, the low-powered station, getting like World Class and some UWF, Bill Watts stuff. So I just loved wrestling as a kid. Would watch it every Saturday morning. Couldn't get enough of it. Had my parents order some VHS tapes of some Crockett, like Starcades, Great American Bashes, and I would play those things until they were damn near wore out. And every once in a while, my dad would take me to like a house show at Cincinnati Gardens to watch like the Crockett cards. I went to a couple of them in like 87, 88. I wasn't a huge fan of the WWF product at the time, but it was wrestling. So I would watch it. And if they were coming to what's now Heritage Bank Center, I think it was Riverfront Coliseum at the time, I would go and have my dad take me just to see wrestling. Like, and I went to a couple live events or house shows there. But yeah, I just like fell in love with it as a kid. I kind of got away from it in the early 90s when I was in high school, just because it got a little silly to me. Some of the gimmicks, little cartoony. And as a teenager, that was just too, I guess with all the goofy gimmicks and stuff, a little too like targeted towards younger kids. So I kind of got away from it. And then I guess it was probably around my senior year. And right after my senior year is when like the NWO and stuff like that. And I was like, whoa, now this is kind of cool. Like, and at the time I wasn't into like reading like dirt sheets, like the Torch or the Observer or anything like that. So I'm seeing Razor Ramon show up on Monday Nitro, and I'm like, and he's acting like Razor, and like I'm like, is going on here? And like kind of blew my mind and kind of got sucked back in. And then seeing the stuff that Brian Pillman was doing at the time. And I was kind of always a fan of Brian's because he's a Cincinnati guy. I'm a Northern Kentucky Cincinnati guy.
Right. Yeah.
I was always drawn to him because of that. And I'm like, damn, if this guy from Cincinnati can do this, then why can't I do it? But if you ask Mike, when I graduated high school, or when I was in high school, I was a tall, skinny kid. I graduated high school maybe 160 pounds. You know, at 6'2", 160 pounds, that's pretty slim.
Yeah.
So I guess it would have been probably after my senior year, got into going to the gym, lifting weights, and researching as much as I could, whether it be through magazines or like online, very early on internet stuff, how to like gain weight and work out and like the bodybuilding culture and stuff like that. So I started doing that and trying to put on size because I knew there wasn't really a place if I wanted to be in the wrestling business for a guy 6'2", 160 pounds. There just wasn't. Maybe as a referee.
Right.
But even then, I mean.
Not in that world anyway. Or
right,
that
especially at that time period. Absolutely. Yeah. So I got myself up over the next couple of years to, you know, that 200-pound range where I thought, well, you know, I'm a little bit bigger now, a little more solid. I'll try this. So in late 98, I guess it was, I started like researching wrestling schools. And I found Les Thatcher's Main Event Pro Wrestling Camp in Cincinnati. And I had called like at the time, whatever the ECW, like Hardcore Dojo, Larry Sharp's Monster Factory. I called a bunch of them because at the time you could find a whole list of wrestling schools on the internet. And
about Roger Ruffin's place?
I did call there. After I was in the business, I went over there and worked out a few times. And this would have been like probably 2012, 13, 14, somewhere along the lines in there.
Huh.
But
we frequent their shows now. That's why I ask.
Okay. Yeah. Roger's probably been, he's probably one of the he is definitely the longest running indie in Cincinnati. By far, it's not even close. And maybe even one of the longer running ones at this point in the United States, because he's been running since mid 90s.
Yeah,
I think mid to late 90s. So over, 25 years at this point, I guess. So I went up, this would have been probably October, let me think, October-ish of 98. Went up and watched a training session there at Les's, and I was like, yep, this is what I'm going to do. Even if I don't go any further than doing shows at like the Hamilton National Guard Armory, or there was a Eagles Hall in Blanchester that Les would run shows at. I was like, even if I don't get any further than that, I want to do this. Like, I got to try this. So I started right after, because I had just had a hernia surgery in like September, October 98. So after the first of the year in 99 is when I started training. And I kind of had a knack and a talent for it. And it came pretty naturally for me, like being in the ring and taking bumps. And I caught on really, really fast. And I started reffing matches just to get experience of being in the ring, like 2 or 3 months in. And I did that up until the end of 99. And then I had my first match, which was a battle royal in like December of 99. And then my first official match was January like 22nd. It was right before my birthday of 2000. And then I just kind of hit the ground running, started doing as many indies as I could, along with working the shows for Les. Les would have, 2 or 3 shows a month. And I just tried to fill up weekends and network early on and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I got my start.
Okay.
Yeah, you can tell, like seeing, I said, we do frequent the NWF shows, and having to self-promote, I see is a ton of it. And this day and age is probably a little easier with social media. And back then you didn't really have that. So you had to, literally put in the work, and your only way to be seen was to do shows.
Yeah. And I got very lucky. Shark Boy, who's from like the Dayton area there, and who had signed with like WCW in like 99 or somewhere around there. After he had got released early on, they were going to do some kind of cruiserweight show. So they signed a bunch of cruiserweights in like 99. I guess it was. That ended up falling through. So they ended up releasing all those guys. Shark Boy was one of those. So he came back to the Cincinnati area and was doing indies. Well, he had worked previously for Ian Rotten's IWA Mid-South in the Louisville area. Ian was running a show. This would have been May of 2000. So I've been wrestling 5-6 months at this point. Shark Boy calls me and is like, hey, I need an opponent for an Ian Rotten show. Are you interested? You want to go down? I'm like, heck yeah, I want to wrestle as much as I can, anywhere I can. Right. And at the time, there was a little bit of beef or a little bit of heat between Ian and Les. So Les wasn't letting a whole lot of guys go down there. He was letting Shark Boy, a guy by the name of Chip Fairway, Brett Keene was his name, who did like a golfer gimmick, and maybe one other. And I kind of slid in under the floodgates. And was allowed to go down there and had a great match with Shark. And Ian was like, look, I can't pay you a whole lot, but I can use you. He was running in it was like an old blue, like diesel garage. Like it was like a pole barn essentially. But he was running every Wednesday and every Saturday. And he's like, look, I'll use you every Wednesday if you can make it down here Wednesday evening. And I can use you whatever Saturdays you don't have shows for less or any other shows. So very early on, I started working, at least twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. So I was able to get a lot of reps in and got pretty good pretty quick on that. And went from there. I branched out and I started doing some shows for Harley Race in like the Central States area, like Missouri, Kansas, Iowa. And here I am, I'm driving from Cincinnati, driving, I guess, just to get to St. Louis is 5.5 hours.
Right.
And,
yeah.
And at the time, Harley's like school and stuff was located in the middle of the state down by Lake of the Ozarks in Eldon. So that's another 3.5. So I would drive to there anywhere, anytime he could use me. But he would always do, like whole weekend shots, like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or at least a Friday, Saturday. Right. And he would put us up and stuff like that. So I made that connection with Harley Race very early on. I got to work with him, and he actually opened the door for me and got me booked with Pro Wrestling Noah. I guess I was 18 months in at the time and got to go to Japan for like 2.5. Yeah, so that's almost unheard of. There's guys go whole careers and never catch that break, and I literally caught one 18 months in. So
well, that's like, that seems like the thing now, especially with a lot of the indie guys I see now. Like taking a tour of Japan is like the thing to do, So like being not necessarily you just being like, oh, I'm just gonna go. You actually being, hey, I'm gonna send this guy over there. That's pretty cool. Yeah,
and it was like they had contacted Harley because Pro Wrestling Noah they split off from All Japan Pro Wrestling, and Mitsuharu Misawa left All Japan because of his disagreement with Giant Baba's widow. I'm sure you guys all know all this. And he was looking, and they had started running shows, I guess, like August of 2000. So this is June of 2001. And he was looking for some cruiserweight foreign talent to bring in. At the time, I was maybe 210, so I fit in to that cruiserweight mold. I was a little tall for cruiserweight, but my body weight, I fit into that mold at that time. And Harley he had his students there and then invited some people in. And Misawa himself was there and a couple people from the office. So, yeah, I was like handpicked by Misawa for that first tour and ended up doing another one. Yeah, it's so crazy. Like, it's kind of being in the right place at the right time kind of thing. But I also was able to, perform at a pretty high level. So, I got picked and then did another tour in 2001 at the end of like a 3.5-week tour. November, December, something like that. So I did 2 tours before I even had 2 years in.
And I mean, it sounds like you did quite a bit before you even started it in like Ring of Honor. I mean, like you were wrestling, Chris Hero and CM Punk and Colt Cabana in IWA before you even got to Ring of Honor. So that's
which is crazy. Like in that summer of 2000, IWA Mid-South. There was a group of us that came in. I came in May. I started in May, the middle of May of 2000. Chris Hero did his first show like 2 weeks after me. Colt Cabana did his first show like 3 weeks after I was there. And then like that 4th week after I'd been there was Punk's first show. So there was like within like a month he booked, and we were all like in that less than 2 year in at that point. And I had met Chris Hero before. Because he's a Dayton, Ohio guy. He would come down and work out with us at Les Thatcher's school And this is before I had even had my first match. I'm like 2 or 3 months in when he first started coming down in '99, and he was already doing indie shows up around Dayton at that point, Dayton, that surrounding area, maybe Columbus and stuff like that. So I had actually met him before that, and had wrestled him several times in like matches just in the gym there in front of nobody else but the other students and stuff like that. But yeah, there was a pretty wild time if you think about it, like the people that started in that spring summer of 2000 there for Ian Rotten working, and at that time he wasn't allowed to run inside that pole barn. It was a concrete slab out back of that pole barn where he would set up the ring on a concrete slab and then put the chairs and the gravel around it. It's crazy stuff, man. But we were all like just hungry, and we were having these really good matches, for guys that were, that green at the time. They were pretty damn good matches.
Well, and so it kind of, for me, like I'm on the younger side here. I was born in '89, so I'm 33.
Okay.
So I didn't really know about any of Ring of Honor or anything like. I mean, in the past couple years, I've tried to consume as much of that as possible. Like for example, I think yesterday I just watched a Samoa Joe versus Necro Butcher in IWA Mid-South.
Yep, at the ECW arena. Yeah, I was
one of the
stiffest
matches I've ever seen in my life.
God, the slow-mos afterwards.
So here was my thing on it, was the fact that it was Necro Butcher and Samoa Joe with Dave Prazak, CM Punk, and Eddie Kingston on commentary.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, my mind's blown because like nobody knows who these people are at this point, and these are some of the top names now, which makes me like, I want to watch every indie show possible right now, because whoever these young guys are, like, they're going to be there one day. It's wild.
Yeah. And like now with AEW being a thing, you have another major company. So that's another opportunity. That's a whole company that has a set of jobs for talent that wasn't available when I was, young. Like I'm, 16 months in or whatever it is, and WCW shuts down. So there's ECW and WWF, and then a month later, ECW goes out of business. So there's one place to work. And at the time, like I'm trying to think, this would have been late 2001, like October, maybe September. Les Thatcher the HWA got a developmental deal with WWF at the time.
Okay.
So they sent a bunch of the WCW cruiserweights that they didn't have anything for on TV, they sent to Les. So Jamie Noble, Shannon Moore, Kaz Hayashi, Jimmy Yang, Lash LaRue was part of that group. And then there was some other, like Mike Sanders, Mark Jindrak. There was several others, Lance Cade, because they had shut down Memphis Championship Wrestling at the time, there was OVW and Memphis Championship Wrestling. They closed down Memphis. They sent half the Memphis crew to Danny Davis and Jim Cornette at OVW. They sent the other half of that Memphis crew to Les Thatcher. So like Steve Bradley, Lance Cade, Charlie and Russ Haas was part of that group. They got sent up there. And then as that year kind of progressed into 2002, they started sending some guys that Vince didn't have anything for on TV. They started to send to OVW and HWA. So I got to be around like D'Lo Brown, Hugh Morris, Sean Stasiak. I mean, D'Lo was great, man. I got to wrestle him a few times. Raven, Tommy Dreamer. So there was a bunch of guys with TV experience got sent down to HWA. So I got to work with a ton of those guys. And I'm, 2 years in at this point, a little over 2 years in. So I'm able to like just soak in like a sponge, like all this knowledge from these guys. And we were working because we would tape a TV show that our TV only aired on like the 45 station, Fox 45 in Dayton.
Nice.
But we would film it every week down at the Davis Arena, the old Davis Arena in Louisville. We would film every Sunday. So we had every Sunday, and then we would do a school show there at Les's, the newer building, which we could fit maybe 150 people in there. We would do a Tuesday night school show. Once a month on Wednesdays at the Montgomery County Fairgrounds, we would like blow off our TV angles there. And then we would like usually have a Friday, Saturday show So my second year, I guess, yeah, it would be starting my third year in the business. I'm working 3 to 5 times a week.
Wow.
Matches, yeah, just getting reps. And then the days that we like had off, and sometimes we would even have training, like a lighter training session, like on Tuesday, because we had the school show on Tuesday nights. Wednesdays we would have a harder training session unless we had the Montgomery Fairgrounds show. Thursday was a pretty hard training session, and then Friday we usually didn't have a training session. But at first, like, you kind of, if you weren't under contract, you had to be kind of invited to those training sessions. So it took a little bit at the time, because like I wasn't under contract and they're kind of selective. But I started having these really good matches with like Shannon Moore and Jamie Noble and those guys, and they kind of went to bat for me, and were like, hey, this guy's pretty freaking good. Like, let's get him in these training sessions and stuff. And I ended up having a brief tag run with Jamie Noble on the HWA TV and stuff like that. Yeah, and I'm still pretty tight with Jamie to this day. Like, I'll call him, and just shoot the shit with him or whatever, and kind of catch up and stuff.
Do you guys trade producer secrets with each other?
Not too much. I get like Dean Malenko is Jamie's mentor, and I've got to be pretty good friends with Dean and get to pick his brain at AEW. Arn is another one who's like brain I pick sometimes and ask questions, but he's been talent for us. He didn't want to do the producer gig anymore. He'd done it for 20 years or whatever there at WWF or WWE. So he just wanted to be talent at this point, but he's still, a guy that can, that is in the coach's room or the producer's room that I can, ask questions to and stuff like that. And, I have to like look around, like pinch myself every once in a while. I'm sure we'll get to this later on, but like the guys that I'm like sharing like a room with backstage at AEW, it's like, whoa, this is like surreal to me. But
so that's what I was gonna say. So I don't know about you guys, but I've always felt like Cincinnati, like, obviously is, a fairly large city, but like the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area to me has always felt very small town, like depending on where you are. And especially in the wrestling business, like there was never really anybody that was from, like, Mox being from Cincinnati is one of the greatest things ever for us, because we have somebody that's a hometown boy that we can root for. So,
literally,
like,
Brian Pillman was it. Brian Pillman, for the longest time, was the only like major pro wrestling name that came out of Cincinnati.
But I'm saying, like, for me, it's like, oh my God, this guy's from where I'm from. Like, he's in a room with all these people, like that's it feels small. It's not technically small town, but it feels like it. So that's cool to me. Yeah,
it sure does. And like the first time, like I produced a lot of Sting and Darby Allin stuff. And the first time Sting looked over and was like, "Hey BJ, what do you think about this?" And I'm like looking around, like pinching myself, like, oh shit, Sting's asking for my opinion on something. Like I had to like catch myself and be like, this is what I think, kind of thing.
Whatever you want.
Kind of like fanboying out at the same time, because I was a huge Sting fan as a kid, like Surfer Sting, like and watching him come up from like UWF, like catching that stuff, and then watching his like career grow with WCW and stuff. So that was really surreal. Again, I'll use that word a lot when he was like, what do you think about this? And I'm like, oh shit, Sting's asking my opinion on something. So yeah, it was
I can only
help but mark out a little bit.
Yeah, I turned into such a fanboy, and like these meet and greets, and I'm like, I'm the gift of gab usually. I can talk to anybody. I stand, like, don't stand there too long. You'll end up talking to the wall. But, I get around people I see on TV all the time, and I'm like, we just met Marina Shafir the other night, and I was like, oh, you're Marina. Oh, hi.
Yeah. Cool.
I don't know what it is. Clicks in my brain that I just go dumb.
My name, Mike. No, I was that way the last time y'all came to Cincinnati. I think we did the FTR meet and greet, and I love Dax and Cash. Like Mike will tell you, my sign off for this is Top Dad's out. Like, I love FTR so much. So I get there, I'm with my daughter, and I'm just like, I have so many things I want to say, but I don't know what to say. And, I'm glad that we're there are people that are literally involved in the business that are still fans. So that's that's really cool.
Like the guys and girls that usually end up getting in the business are the ones that are the biggest fans.
Right.
Honestly. So yeah, that's and then the segue from working there at HWA, during that time is when Ring of Honor started, like February of 2002. And in about March of 2002, Spanky, Brian Kendrick, he was part of that Memphis crew, but they fired a few guys, let go a few guys from that Memphis crew, Memphis Championship Wrestling crew, and he was one of them. Well, he drove from wherever he was living at the time to Cincinnati and was sleeping because he had trained with Lance Cade at Shawn Michaels school. So he's sleeping on Lance's couch and doing shows for less, and then getting flown from there to do, like, I think there was monthly Ring of Honor shows at that point. And he had a tape. He had brought in a tape to training one day of the first ROH show. And I sat down and watched it with him after training. And I was like, that's where I need to be. That's where I want to be. Like, how do I get there? And I, talked to Spanky and was like, yeah, I can pass your name along. And there was one of the Montgomery County Fairgrounds show. Me and Spanky opened the show and had like a 13, 15-minute, like, just banger of a match. And we get to the back and Spanky's like, that match is going to Gabe as soon as I can get it to him. He's like, he's like, you're right down Gabe's alley of what he's looking for.
Right.
He's like, I don't know how quick it'll happen, but he's like, I'll make sure that you at least get a tryout with him. He's like, and I think he's going to love you. So continued that, I think in August of 2002, WWF at the time pulls the deal from Les. They cut that and open up. They might have just centered everything into, I don't think they opened up Deep South for another year or so after that. But I kept doing indies, around all over Chicago. Dude, I've made that drive Cincinnati, Chicago probably more times than I've driven anywhere for indie shows over the years. And January of 2003, got the call. ROH was doing a show in Pittsburgh, and Gabe's like, there was a guy from Cincinnati from Les's school, also named Matt Stryker, not the Matt Stryker that was at WWE, but a different Matt Stryker had a unibrow, so we would always call him Unibrow Stryker. He was from like the Milford area of Cincinnati, and we would went up there and did that, and we both pretty much got jobs that night with Gabe. Gabe's like, yeah, I want you guys to start working for us. And I was on pretty much every show, minus like shows where I had to have like a quick surgery. Like throughout the years there at ROH, I had to have bone chips cleared out of both elbows, which I was out for a couple of weeks. I might have missed one, or maybe 3 weeks I was out. So I might have missed one weekend worth of shows or something like that. And it was, but pretty much from January 03 till mid 08, I was damn near on every event for ROH.
Yeah. So I'm actually, that's the wild thing to me. So I actually have your cage match history pulled up here. That's why I keep looking over here so I can seem like I'm smart and I know all your matches. But actually,
I've been trying to
that thing's pretty accurate. It doesn't have every single one on there, but it has a lot on there. A lot of my stuff on there.
Yeah. So I'm just like reading some of this stuff, and like Paul London, you, Colt Cabana, and Homicide in a 4-corner survival. Like
that was my first match, and that was my first match at ROH. I should say it was my first match at ROH, and I got there kind of early because I wanted to be on time and stuff, and had kind of come up with an idea for a finish. So Gabe's talking to us, and I think originally the match was supposed to be me and Paul London at singles, which at the time would have been awesome, and me and Paul would have killed it because that's when Paul was really on his upward ascension and was gonna be signed sometime in 03. It was just a matter of time before WWE picked him up because he was like one of the first guys, like homegrown guys, that really got over to ROH. So I was like, yes. But then when I found out it was going to be a 4-corner survival or whatever they called it at the time, and kind of had an idea for a finish. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to throw my cards on the table and see what he thinks. And I ran this finish by Gabe, and he's like, you know what? I like it. Use it tonight. I was like, okay. Right. And literally the finish came off awesome. We went like through what we call like a waterfall type deal where we're all hitting big moves with near falls. And I had dragon suplexed Cabana, which is the full Nelson suplex, and was in the bridge. And as I'm there in the bridge, Paul comes off with that beautiful shooting star press and lands on me while I'm in that bridge for the finish. And then, like, I was able to see him, so I popped out of the bridge so he wouldn't, like, break my neck, essentially.
Right,
so
yeah.
my head went, I went flat for him, but the timing on it was awesome. And I came through the curtain after the match, and Gabe's like, I'm calling you tomorrow. We need you to travel for the next show. You're on every show from here on out.
Hell
and
yeah.
I was like, thank God. Like, that's what I wanted, because that was my whole goal going there that day for that tryout, was to get a job.
So what, like everything I'm seeing here, like, it seems like you and like Punk and kind of, there's like a group of like 4 or 5 of you that, like, in IWA Mid-South and ROH all seem to just kind of keep having matches together. Was that just like a thing where you guys just like working together, or you just had good chemistry, or how did that work?
I, like, from the first time I worked with, like, Cabana and Punk and Hero and some of those guys, like, we were all just really good and really hungry, and it just, like, came together. Like, I don't think I had a bad match with, like, a guy like Chris Hero. I don't think I ever had a bad match with Colt Cabana. I didn't have a bad match with CM Punk. And at the time, because we were all trying to prove ourselves, we would go out there and we would go hard.
Right,
like,
yeah.
Really hard. Which my body's paying the price for some of
say,
that. And
dude,
working that style now. But, dude, I was having a blast. I'm in my early 20s, mid-20s, and just doing what I wanted to do since I was a kid, and kind of starting to blend, which a lot of people weren't doing at the time, that Japanese, I don't know if you want to call it strong style, that all Japan style, the
Kinda
big, near
Kings
falls.
Roadish, yeah.
Kings Roadish, and just kind of trying to blend that with, and kind of make it the American indie style, kind of blend a little bit of old school with that old school hardcore, dog collar, cage matches, to blow angles off and stuff like that. So, we're just trying to make a name for ourselves. So we were young, hungry, and just willing to go hard.
Yeah.
Well, y'all did pretty well.
Yeah.
Talk about taking a punishment. I'm pretty sure one of the events I saw in said Montgomery County Fairgrounds was you versus a certain guy and some barbed wire replacing the the ring ropes. I still tell that story like this was just the absolute bloodiest thing I've ever seen. And
yeah, that would have been
are you nuts?
Kind of like the blow off to the ROH CZW angle that ran through like 3/4 or a little over half of 2006, and it was kind of like, it was actually after the Cage of Death match we did. It was like the singles blow off, because I was kind of like at the forefront of representing ROH in that feud and sort of thing. But yeah, they asked me if I'd be willing to do it, and I had always said I would do hardcore stuff if it made sense, storyline wise. Like, I wouldn't just do, I would never do light bulbs, just because that glass scares me a little bit. But I would do barbed wire, and because I like to go back to me starting at IWA Mid-South in 2000. I'm seeing these guys, and it was always later in the show after the wrestling had happened, and like the semi-main and the main, these guys just blasting each other, hitting each other over the head with these light bulb tubes and glasses flying everywhere, and that powder, which is poisonous in those fluorescent tubes, is just flying everywhere. And I'm like, what am I watching? Like, this is crazy. But to go back, I always said I would do something like that if it made sense and the money was there too. Like, if I got paid well for it, I would do it. And I thought that was the proper time and place to do one. And Necro, like, you go back like to the Joe match and stuff like that. Necro had like developed a cult following within the United States.
Like, he was Nick Gage back then, almost.
Yes,
you know what I
he
mean?
absolutely was. Yep, for sure. And like, literally one of the most intelligent guys you'll ever meet. Doesn't look like it, but literally, I think he graduated high school at like 16 or 17. So like super, super smart, and super smart about the business too. But he just loved that hardcore, that Japanese deathmatch style and stuff. But he could actually get in there and wrestle. He amateur wrestled like in high school and stuff like that. So every once in a while, he would like pick a guy on like a double leg takedown or a single, or pick somebody's ankle. Every once in a while, I'd be like, what the hell did he just do? Like, got a thing. But yeah,
that's what I loved. Him and the wrestler in the Mickey Rourke movie, like how like eloquent he was, like mapping out the match. Like, so what do you think about staples? What do you think about that? And then they cut to it, and he's like stapling his forehead and all kinds of stuff.
So well spoken, so well spoken. Dylan's his name.
Yeah,
Dylan's so well spoken, which you wouldn't think just by looking, by appearances and stuff like that. Right. But I always liked working him because he would go hard too. Thing was like he was kind of like Stan Hansen, and the fact that he wore these really thick glasses. He wouldn't wrestle with the glasses on because he couldn't. You know, you can't wear glasses when you wrestle, and he didn't wear contacts either. So with those punches, man, like either 90% of the
zero
time,
depth perception.
You just had to eat it.
Bingo. So you knew the forearms and punches. It was like a lottery punch. Every once in a while you get lucky and it wouldn't hardly touch you, but most of the time you were on the losing end of it, man. Like, but it wasn't bad. He wasn't
so much.
He wasn't like anybody wasn't hitting you hard enough to like hurt you. It would rock you a little bit or whatever.
Right,
you know, it'd zap you a little bit, but it wasn't like he was full on trying to hurt you. Or anything like that. His depth perception, like you said, was just a hair off. But I always had really good matches with Necro. Had really good chemistry with him, and that literally that bar match is one of my favorite matches I had in my career. And he says the same thing about it. So it was pretty cool.
Well, that's going to lead me to this. Do you have a favorite match and or feud?
I mean, I can't narrow it down to just one. I guess like when you start looking, if you want to research and dig into my career, the stuff with Jimmy Jacobs is really special. It's kind of, I guess, in ROH what I'm kind of known for, mine and Jimmy Jacobs.
Why do you hate Jimmy Jacobs? I've seen you literally try to kill this man on like 3 or 4 different occasions. Something about this top rope power bomb.
The one where we slipped was supposed to be, he was supposed to reverse that into a Rana. My foot slipped off. The one where he hits like the like goes down lucky, the ropes.
Yeah.
He got really lucky on that. That was supposed to be. We would do this spot on Ian Rotten shows, on shows in Evansville, Indiana, and all these small towns and stuff. First time I ever saw it was Kid Cash, Easy Money, from ECW, late ECW stuff, where Easy Money would try to powerbomb Kid Cash off the top, but Kid Cash would reverse it into a Rana.
Okay. Yeah.
And we had actually done it on a ROH show in Dayton. It was me and Dan Moff when we were tagging against Jimmy Jacobs and Delirious. And it was literally the only thing that Dan and I gave those guys that entire match was that top rope Rana, and then I fed into Delirious's backsplash, and then they double covered me 1-2 last second kick out, and that was literally the only thing we gave them, and they bid on that as a false finish, which was really cool. But we had done that so many times. Yeah, that was literally it, and we got them to bite that they might actually beat us on that. But we had done that at least a dozen times, that spot. But the spot on the biggest stage, and this was 2006. It was going into WrestleMania weekend. We did Thursday in Detroit, and then had Friday, Saturday in Chicago. And literally on the biggest stage in front of like 600 or 700 people there on a Thursday night at I think it was the Michigan State Fairgrounds, that building. I slipped, and when I hit, I knew I had jacked my ankle up, but I was more worried about him.
Right.
Because like he doesn't know, like when I pull him up like that, he just knows he's going to whip his body backwards for the Rana. So he doesn't know like where he's at in time and space.
Right.
That makes sense.
He doesn't know if you're slipping or not.
No. So all I could think as I slipped was to like push his hips like towards the ring, so he would hit something to break his fall before he started to tuck all the way backwards, which is kind of what happened. And thank God, like his shoulders hit and not just his head.
Yeah, hit the apron. His head grazed the ring rope, which kind of threw him down a little bit, and where his shoulders hit. I watched it back like 3 times. Like, God, he almost died there.
Yeah, and
that is the hardest part of the ring.
Yes, the apron.
JR will tell you.
Yeah, and we'll go when we fast forward here a little bit.
Sorry.
It was an apron bump where I broke my neck on in 2013. Yeah. The apron is very unforgiving. But yeah, that was like the biggest stage we'd ever tried that on. Ended up slipping, blowing the spot. And people think to this day that we did that deliberately. And I'm like, no, we didn't do that deliberately. Right. Why would I jump backwards off the top rope? Like, no, it just.
Well, it's on record now. That was not
yeah, and
deliberate.
I've said it in interviews before. Like, people, that was not done deliberately. There's no way. Like as crazy as I was a performer, I'm not that stupid to do something like that to destroy my own ankle on it. But that kind of kicked off that feud because we had split as a tag team. It was only going to be that match and maybe one more, and we were able to keep that going. And Gabe Sapolsky, to his credit, kept booking it throughout that year. I ended up needing ankle surgery, I guess August of that year, 2006, which I missed. I should have missed like 12 weeks. I was back in 6. Imagine that. Being stupid and wanting to get back. So I didn't take my time on my rehab or anything like that. But yeah, and we were able to get a whole year out of that and work back to that same building and do that cage match that had the weapons involved and stuff like that. So yeah, the Jimmy Jacobs stuff, the CZW stuff, that's probably like my favorite stuff. But like to pinpoint like one favorite match, like in 2004, we're working for Ian Rotten. I got to do a 30-minute Ironman match with Jerry Lynn. So I got to, in some little ass town, Olytic, Indiana, which is like an hour north of Louisville, in some old like school building that the gym, they still had the gym standing or whatever. And some crazy stuff like that. But yeah, I couldn't pinpoint, and then I would have to go through my cage match history and say, oh, that was a really good one. Really like that one. But yeah, the Jimmy Jacobs stuff is probably what I'm most known for sure at this point, as far as my in-ring career goes.
30-minute Ironman with Jerry Lynn. I'm sorry, that's wild.
Yeah, which is another guy I get to share, the coaches.
You get to share, producer, whatever. I don't know what you guys call it.
To me, we're producers. I mean, we're coaches. I get with AEW, they want to they don't want to use the WWE vernacular for our job, but what we do is produce matches. We also coach as well, so they just went with the coaches, like the title coach instead of producer, to set us apart from WWE.
Well, SRS is calling y'all producers on Fightful Select. Just saying.
Okay. Yeah, I call myself a producer. When people ask what I do, I say I'm a match producer for All Elite Wrestling.
So the reason that I, kind of found out that you were doing all these women's matches was because of that. I subscribed to Fightful Select just because I like all the little, I like the dirt sheet stuff that isn't bull crap. It's actually like fun stuff to read, just like, hey, this person produced this match, or, it's not like trying to oust people's personal lives. It's just about the show itself. You know what I mean? So
gotcha. Now is Fightful, is that Sean Ross Sapp?
Sean Ross Sapp, yeah.
He's a Kentucky boy too.
He is.
Yeah, he's the Lexington guy, right?
He was in Maysville. He's living in Lexington now.
Okay.
But he started posting. I think it was like beginning of November is when he started, because he's always done it for Raw and SmackDown. Like, you knew who produced the matches, whatever. And I guess he started getting that info, and I remember he did like a big one on you producing Tony Storm versus Jamie Hayter at Full Gear, and I was like, dude, that was awesome.
I'm really proud of that one.
You should be
super proud of that one. Like, me and those girls put in so much time and effort into that. Like, they were so freaking hungry to just kill it. Like, they had that look in their eye, and I'm like, I've had that look before. I know what you guys want to do. And like the first women's match, I guess, and we're kind of skipping forward here a little bit. The first women's match I did was a tag match with Tony and Sheeta against Britt and Jamie in Toronto of October of this past year. And that's where you can kind of see a shift, because they would kind of producers would kind of jump around with people, and no one had really found a footing yet with the women. And I kind of wanted to work with them, and I had let people know, like, hey, if it comes up opportunity, I'd like to work with the girls. I think I can really help them and think I can get some really good stuff out of them. And I did that match, and I let them do a little more false finishes, and we went a little more false finish heavy than what some other people did, and they loved it. The girls did. So
I think the next I love a good false finish match. So that was
that's the way I produced. Like, I worked to that Noah style, in which even undercard stuff, there's kind of false finish heavy. I was a huge fan of like those like false finish heavy matches and stuff, especially if it's something a little later in the card.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it's semi-main or, you know, third from the top or whatever. But yeah, we ended up turning out really good. And like Tony was wrestling Sheeta in a singles the next week in Cincinnati. And right after Tony come through and right after Tony come through the curtain, she's like, "Hey, can I have you produce my match next week with Sheeta?" I was like, "Absolutely." I was like, "I'm yours till you tell me otherwise." I was like,
"That's awesome."
You know, and even Jamie came to me and she's like, "Hey, I want you doing all my stuff from now on. Like, I want you on all my stuff." So, I mean, yeah, and I clicked with those girls really well. But yeah, the Full Gear match is like, I'm super proud of that one. I've watched it back. I mean, I just watched it the other day. Like, it's still like
so good.
I think the way, and it was a collaborative effort between the three of us, putting together those false finishes and stuff like that, and made Tony look like Superwoman coming out of it, you know, with all the she didn't lose anything coming out of it, and, you know, and the natural ascension that Jamie's been on, it's been so organic and so amazing to watch, and to have a little part of that now has been really cool.
That's my favorite, is just a straight up organic rise where the fans just, they love you.
This is our person. This is who we want. We are going with this person right here. And to watch that happen is amazing. It's really special and really cool.
I feel like a lot of that's happened, especially in the women's division in AEW, at least for me. Because like I said, I have a 7-year-old daughter who just started watching this with me, I would say maybe a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And actually found out about it because I was watching the Royal Rumble late one night, and because like she had gone to bed, and I was like, I'll watch it later. And she woke up and came out, and the Women's Rumble was on, and she's like, you know, what's this? And she's
all these women out here.
Yeah, enthralled with it ever since. And you know, like we've seen gone to a few Warrior shows. She's met Thunder Rosa a couple times. That's Thunder's her favorite. Like, loves her to death. Like, loyal to Thunder to a fault. Like when Tony and Saraya were beating Britt up last week, I was like, Em, what are they doing? She was like, oh, they're just being real nice to Britt. Like, just, you know, 7-year-old kid, too smart for her own good. But
right.
Just I can see the way that it just, she looks at these matches and she's just like, this is so awesome. I mean, like the first AEW show we went to, the only match she stood up for was when Ruby came out. And that was right after Ruby had debuted at All Out. But, you know, I'm pretty sure we listened to Ruby Soho by Rancid about 15 times on the way to the venue, you know, like, so just, I feel like the women's division, especially in AEW, it seemed like the next champion has always been a real organic rise. Like that's how it was with Britt won. And then, you know, Thunder, those two just unreal together. And then unfortunately Thunder did get hurt, but even before she got hurt, you know, Tony came in and Tony was getting that backing, you know? And it's kind of been an organic progression ever since. And I think that's awesome.
It's really cool when the fans pick someone and it's like, that's our person, that's who we're going with. And it seems like you said, every women's champion that we've kind of had, that's kind of happened. I don't think it's happened to the level it's happening with Jamie. Nothing against the rest of the women in that division. You know, the rise and this like organic like windfall of people coming up and wanting Jamie to be in that spot is really special, and that only happens, you know, once in a while. So
I mean, the fans almost single-handedly, you know, made the Acclaimed tag team champions. So
same thing with the Acclaimed. You know, that rap they started doing at first, it wasn't that. The people didn't really get with it, and they're like, oh man, these guys are good, this is catchy. And then they you know, and it was just, and once the people got with it, it was just like, that's our team, that's who we want.
Well, and
we'll take it from here. Like,
I was telling Mike about that the other day. The first Cincy show we went to, you know, that was the Rampage match was Brian Pillman Jr. versus Max Caster, but that was when nobody gave two farts about the Acclaimed. You know, Max was just a heel, and he was there to take the L for the hometown guy. And then a year later, literally a year later after that match, they're the most popular tag team in wrestling. It's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. Being in the building at All Out this past year when they were working Swerve and when they had the match with Swerve and Keith Lee.
Right.
And that crowd was at such a fever pitch wanting the Acclaim to win that night. I mean, they went on ahead and I think they made the right call by having them win it in front of like 20,000 people at Arthur Ashe at Grand Slam, because that's Bowens, I think, is from North Jersey and Caster's from Long Island. So that's kind of their home area. But had they like called an audible and switched those belts in Chicago, it would have blown the roof off Now Center.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it would have blown the roof off that place because they were in such a fever pitch just wanting those guys to win. And those guys put those falls finish together masterfully that night too.
Beautifully.
Yeah. And trust me, we were watching. I was sitting right next to Mike watching it in his basement, and we could feel it at home too. We were like, holy crap, this crowd is insane right now. Like the organic, scissors, that was amazing.
It was like one person thought of it, and then all of a sudden it was just like a fever, and it just
spread throughout the entire arena.
It was amazing.
I love wrestling.
So let me ask you this while we're talking about you producing and everything. So you were talking about how you guys put that match together, like you, Tony, Jamie. Like, how much is it kind of match to match? Like, how much input is you? How much is them? Like, obviously, Tony gives you like the finish, I would assume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then
Tony's and Tony Khan, because
Tony Khan, TK. I'm sorry.
TK.
TK gives you the finish, and then is it just like whoever comes up with the best thing, or how does that work?
We'll pull the curtain back here a little bit. Like you said, TK will kind of give us the finish. We kind of knew going in who was going over. He had an idea for a finish wise. I put the three of us collectively, being Tony Storm, Jamie Hayter, and myself, put a little twist on it to make it our own, because it was a previous finish that had been done before, so we kind of made that our own. And as far as like the rest of the match, like the way I do it is I go to the talent that I'm working with, and I'm like, tell me what you're thinking. Talk to me here. Tell me what you're thinking tonight. And to get their brains working, because once their brains get working and start spitting out ideas, my brain starts to work.
Okay.
And I start to because I want the match to come out of their brains, not mine. So that way they learn. Now, if I and a lot of times the way my mind works is I'll be listening to them put stuff together, and if a transition doesn't sound right, I'll get hung up on it, and they'll keep talking about, and then I'll be like, time out for a second. Let's come back, rewind for a second, come back here, and then I'll go over like with them. And this is the coaching aspect, I guess, of what I do, and the coaching aspect of my job. And I'll kind of say, well, dude, I'm getting hung up on this. I don't think this is as smooth as it could be. Let's look at it through this lens and see if, something, and I'll shoot out an example of a transition that feels a little smoother, that flows a little better. And they'll be, oh, I didn't even think of that. And then they'll either use it or they don't have to. Like, they don't have to use anything that I come up with, because it's their match. I'm just trying to get the best match possible out of the talent.
Right. Yeah.
Using my experience and using the knowledge that I've, gathered through being around people like Harley Race, Les Thatcher, Dr. Tom Pritchard, Raven. And then there's a ton of people, from my matches with like CM Punk, my matches with Samoa Joe, all these people that I've been in a ring with and shared a ring with, because you learn something new every time you're in the ring, or every time you're around someone new. And if you're not trying to do that every time you're around someone that has more experience than you or is better than you, then what are you doing in the business anyway?
Yeah.
So I just try to pass on what knowledge I have, and I'll explain and break it down of why I think this would flow better and stuff like that. And if they want to use it, they can. If they don't have to, they don't want to.
Right.
Sometimes it's that different perspective, and you with the experience and that different perspective to get them to think differently. And then, maybe next time they don't, they automatically are thinking that way. So
and I was working with some of the women. I was working with a few of them before I got the match with the Toronto tag match that I had mentioned earlier. I was working a lot with, and all three of these girls got hurt within a couple months of each other. I was working with, you're going to know what I'm talking about here.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
I was working a lot with Chris Statlander. Like her whole character transition and stuff. I was helping with her a lot with that. I was working a lot with Red Velvet and a lot with Layla Hirsch.
Yep.
Those were the three that I was kind of working with. And if you go back and watch the pre-show match that Stat and Layla Hirsch had for Revolution of last year.
That was awesome.
And there was 3 women's matches that night. The one on the pre-show, there was Jade and Ty Conti, and I think Britt and Rosa on that. And in my opinion, just my opinion, and it's not because I produced it, I thought Layla and Stat put on the best performance.
You weren't the only one. We hadn't started this podcast by then, but I watched. I pretty religiously watched a lot of the review shows, which is essentially what we do now. And I remember watching the Revolution review. I think it was Fightfuls, and I remember I'm pretty sure at least one of them on there was like the pre-show women's match was the best one.
And I don't think it got out that I had produced that one, but I was working like heavily with Stat and Layla and Layla Hirsch and Red a lot, and they all end up getting hurt. Like Layla blew an ACL in a dark match or a elevation match or something like that, and then Velvet busts up her hip, and then Stat blows her other ACL after only being back for a year and a half from the one ACL.
Girl.
So and like
you talk about organic. You talk about getting over organically. She was her hype was.
Oh, Stat was
for that
Stat
injury.
was on that that trajectory too. Like, and once she gets back, like I can't wait to get her in the mix. Like a dream match for me to produce is her and Jamie Hayter. It just is like. Yeah. Like and I can't wait to like the build to that and stuff like that. But I mean, I'm having a blast working with all these ladies now. Like it's so much fun. And I can see like they've kind of got a chip on their shoulder and they got something to prove, and to have a little piece of helping them like prove themselves that's been so satisfying for me as a producer, is watching these ladies just come into their own. And that's the whole group. I mean, we've got a bunch of younger talent too. Ty Conti, Anna Jay, that just don't have the experience yet. But these girls are going to be really freaking good once they get the experience under their belt. We got a lot of, and I'm leaving people out.
So I got to ask Willow. Do you enjoy working with Willow?
Willow, I love working with Willow.
I love Willow Nightingale
that smile.
So much.
She has so much personality. And the first, like, was she, like, before I left ROH, I think they were starting to utilize her just a little bit here and there. And she was still fairly new at the time. And I was like, man, there's something with this girl. Like, she just has this personality that people, like, are drawn
so magnetic.
to.
So magnetic.
And I was standing at the, actually, I want to say she wrestled Red on an elevation match somewhere up around Boston or something like that. And I told Red before they went out, I told them both, I was like, hey, if they start cheering for her, because this is up around the area where she does a lot of indies, and they start booing you a little bit, Red, don't fight it. Just go on ahead and up the aggressiveness just a little bit and lean in. Don't try to fight upstream. And
wasn't that the Owen Hart tournament?
It might have been. I don't know. I think it was the elevation match. Maybe it was the Owen Hart one.
I know that when they were in the Owen Hart tournament and Willow was getting all the cheers in that match, and there were people that were like, she seriously didn't win. And I'm like, I mean, Red's going to win. Willow's not even signed yet. Like, come on.
Yeah, I think it was shortly after that is when Willow got signed. But yeah, Willow's another one. I can't believe I forgot her. I love working with her. And she's so much fun to work with because she's so bubbly out there and has so much personality and so much charisma. And she's athletic too. That's the thing.
Right.
She's super athletic as well.
Pounce.
Yes.
Her pounce pops me every single time.
Oh, she just blasts those girls, send them flying, and I love it. I pop for it.
Oh, especially when she's in like a match with a Red Velvet or something like smaller girl, and she can just launch her across the ring. It's great.
Yeah, that's another one that's like on that massive upward trajectory, and the people are just getting behind her big time. So yeah, I can't believe I almost forgot about her, having her there. But yeah, Willow's amazing.
So I guess that kind of leads me into this. Do you, or just I guess not just you, but like the women's division, like what goals, outlook do you have, like just for this year? Like some things you want to see maybe, or just what your expectations are?
I mean, I want to see how this like outsiders versus homegrown stuff
I do too.
Starting. Plays out. I think a lot of people are in that like
invasion angles always work. Like they always work.
They'll get heat on some people for sure, and they'll get some steam on a baby face or a group of baby faces without a doubt. So I'm kind of anxious to see how this all plays out and what's in TK's mind for this, and what I can like as a producer, what I can do to kind of like help parlay Tony's vision, and help it come to life, which is like part of what I do too, and part of like the creative process that that I like. Cause like when I go to Tony, I was like, tell me what you're seeing. Like, tell me what your vision is, and I'll see, like, tell me what it is. And then I'll throw out ideas. If you don't like my ideas, fine. But I don't do that for the whole show. I do that for the stuff that I'm producing that night. Cause I want it to be, I want my stuff to be top notch. I want it to be very well produced and stuff like that. So I'm involved that way. And, so when I go to him, so yeah, I'm anxious to see where that plays out. I mean, if we could get to it, like a women's blood and gut match, I think would be really cool. I think that would be like really, really, really cool to let.
That's my prediction for Revolution.
Is blood and guts.
I've been saying it. I said it's leading. They're gonna have women's blood and guts. It's gonna be AEW homegrowns versus WWE invaders at Revolution.
Yeah, I don't know if that
I might be wrong,
or if they would do that on like a special Dynamite just to get more eyes on it. I don't know if they would try to pop a pay-per-view number, a higher pay-per-view number with that match, or if they would want to try to pop a higher rating and get more ad revenue that way. So I don't know business-wise.
I'm ready for it.
Yeah, that's and I just want to like keep, as far as this year, just keep the women's division on this upward trajectory.
Yeah,
like I think, I mean, Jade's coming into her own.
Yeah,
big time. So it's not, let's not forget about on that side of things, because I've been working mostly with the women's world title, and Billy Gunn's been working mostly with Jade and the TBS title kind of thing, which Billy's a good friend of mine. Try to work out with him when we're on the road and stuff like that, go to the gym with him and stuff. He's become a really good friend of mine. I pick his brain a lot too.
He works out.
Right? 58 years old. Looks
Get out of town.
Amazing.
Makes the rest of that crew that he was with look like a bunch of geriatrics.
And he's deceptively big, because like you don't realize he's legit like 6'4", 6'5". Like he's tall and about as wide as he is tall across the shoulders. He's just huge. I bet he's 270 pounds at this point. Like he's and not a fat, like a lean,
like a stacked 270.
Yeah, and can still get out there and go for his age, however old he is. I mean, he's in his 50s, his late 50s at this point, but you couldn't tell by looking at him. But
no.
I mean, he still goes hard in the gym too.
Daniels the other night, still going.
Yeah, right. Like Chris is over 50 at this point. He's got to be in his early 50s.
Yeah,
and he's a guy that I met 20 years ago or something at this point. CD's amazing. Like how those guys have been able to hold their bodies together for that long. My body broke down, but I was taking a lot of head drops and a lot of those All Japan style bumps way too often, not realizing that Misawa and Kawada Taue and those guys and Akiyama and those guys are only doing that once, maybe twice a year. And here I am, every weekend.
Let's do it every other week. Yeah.
Half Nelson suplexes and Dan Moss burning hammer right on the top of my head and stuff like that. Those guys were doing that once, maybe twice a year. And here I am doing it 2 or 3 times a month, So, but yeah, I wouldn't change anything.
You referenced breaking your neck. So, I mean, do you know, like, have you gone back and, like, looked at it and, like, broke it down to, like, was it just bad positioning, bad timing?
On the pile driver I took from Mike Bennett, we were in Toronto on an ROH show. I don't know exactly what happened. I haven't watched it back. I've seen, like, pictures of the move happening, and my head had just popped out just an inch or two too much, and that's literally all it takes.
Right.
And I took a few months off, and then I call it a broken neck because what happened was I blew out the disc between C6 and C7, and I bruised my spinal cord is what happened there. And I kept working until finally, and for those, I would have came back December of 13. That happened in August 13, came back in December of 13. And I knew coming back in December 13 that this was my last run. However long it lasts, I'll go until the wheels fall off, until I have to have the surgery on my neck. Ended up blowing the ACL on my left leg, I guess, in May of 2014. So 5 months later, worked for 14 months with no ACL, just put the Steve Austin brace on to lock that knee into place. Yeah. Until I had the ACL surgery at 37. And then I really knew, I'm on the last, there's fumes left in the tank at this point. I'm going to have to start wrapping things up. And at the time I had gone back to college. So I was in nursing school at the time. So, and I'm still working ROH. And as I come back in the beginning of 16, had a really cool match I'm really proud of, the Steve Corino feud that went on. I know a lot of the internet fans and stuff say it went on way too long. Well, it went on way too long because I got hurt. He got hurt. He had to have his neck fused and stuff. And then I had the ACL surgery. So that match should have happened way sooner than what it did. But because of injuries, it got drawn out a lot longer.
It was fun to go back and watch because,
I literally just watched that
and stuff. Total Brian Pillman move.
Well, what the stuff me and Steve were doing?
Yeah.
And we got to work with one of our childhood heroes at the end of that with Kevin Sullivan and stuff.
Yeah.
We wanted to bring him in and kind of and had it got to play out, had ROH booking let us play it out the way me and Steve wanted it to play out, we were going to start doing all these subtle tributes, and it was going to be an homage of old angles to our childhood heroes, Terry Funk and stuff like that, and doing these doing these modern day versions of these angles that we saw as kids and watched on tapes and stuff like that. We didn't get a chance to do it, but that'll be a story for Steve's book, I guess, when he finally writes one, if he does write one. But I knew then, when I came back from the ACL surgery, I've got a little bit of time left. Let's do some cool, fun stuff. Let's do this stuff with Kevin and I got to be friends with Kevin Sullivan out of that, which is another mark out moment for me. But then they kind of started transitioning me into a backstage role at ROH, and I was on headset at the gorilla position as I kind of quit the in-ring thing. I did the stuff with Damian Priest with Punishment Martinez at the time.
And
got him ready for his singles run. He turned on me in Pittsburgh or whatever, and I just kind of rode off into the sunset. And it started the backstage stuff. And as 2017 is coming to a close, I'm getting ready to graduate nursing school, and I told the ROH office, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to be involved in wrestling, but if you can create an office position for me, I have no problem when I graduate moving to Baltimore, being in the office every day. Still doing what I do at the shows, but if you can create a position for me, I'll take it. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go be a nurse. I was the only thing I ask is you pay me a tiny bit more, just a little bit more than what I'd make as a nurse. And they created a position, and I moved to Baltimore and was in the ROH office there for a year. It was 2018, into the fall of 2018, All In happens. I helped Matt, Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks, and Cody and those guys kind of produce that. It helped them set up the travel and the hotel and stuff. There's a lot like behind the scenes I was helping with there.
Wow.
Turns out they had the stuff with Tony Khan going, like starting to set that up shortly after that. And they were like, hey, dude, this is kind of what we got going on. And I was kind of talking to Matt Bloom at WWE about possibly going there as a coach, producer for NXT. But Matt and Nick were them, Cody and them were like, hey, we would like to have, this is kind of what we got going on. We'd like to have you as part of the team. And I was like, no pun intended, I'm all in with you guys. Like, no pun intended, well, I'm in. I'm all in.
I think you made the right choice. I mean,
yeah. So like, I was.
I'm not trying to be tribalistic or anything, but I think you got a really good thing going. So
yeah, and then to be like a very early on, like day one guy there. You know, there's still several of us there that are like very early on, but you know, it's really cool to be on the ground floor and watch the growth and then like the explosion of the growth happen and stuff like that. It's been so awesome.
So
awesome.
I gotta ask, like, with you being, you know, pretty much the entire tenure of ROH, you were involved in some fashion.
Yeah, I did take
right?
3 years, almost 3 years off from the wrestling business. In 2008, I was banged up, mentally and emotionally burned out. I was also, and throughout most of my career, I would have like a weekly, like a job during the week to help make ends, not only to help make ends meet, but I would do like, I worked at the local GNC there in Alexandria. I know, really? I'm pretty sure Mike knows what I'm talking about. Yeah. And I did that from like 2001 to 2000.
The old Fitworks.
Yeah.
Village Green. Village Green.
It was Village Green. Yeah. That's the one. I did that from like 2000 or 2001 to like 05, and then all of 06 and most of 07 I just wrestled, and then went back to the GNC and I was doing that as well. I was managing a GNC. I was burned out mentally and emotionally with the business and stuff, and I planned on taking, in March or April of 08, I guess it was March, I called Gabe. I said, hey, I need like 6-8 months off. I'm just burned out. I'm beat up. Want some time off, recharge the batteries or whatever, which was the plan. Like 2 weeks after I put my notice in with Gabe to give me some time off, Pro Wrestling Noah calls me and was like, hey, we have like a 3-week tour in June. Would you want to do it? And I was like, well, yeah, I'm getting ready to take 6 months off from wrestling. I can definitely use this cash. And plus it's another tour to Japan, another trip to Japan.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Get to work with like guys like Kenta and Marufuji and Kenny Maru and Akiyama awesome. And those guys. So I did that, but like the third night in on the tour, I tore my wrist up on a frog splash, which they thought I broke my hand. I ended up working out the rest of the tour. I get back, they think I broke my hand, so they put me in a cast for like 8 weeks. They take the cast off. I'm like, Doc, something's not right. This doesn't feel right. This is still way too painful. So they did an MRI, and I had torn 2 ligaments between like the small bones and the base of your hand there. So then they had to go in and repair those ligaments and put like 3 pins in my wrist there. So I was in a cast for another like 10 weeks or something like that. Well, by that time I ain't been to the gym in like 4 or 5 months, and I'm eating whatever I want. So I'd gotten way out of shape, and it got to be one of those things where it's like, yeah, I'll go back to the gym. I'll start by getting back in shape Monday. And it was like, well, it's Tuesday. How about next Monday? It was just next Monday. And before I knew it, like 2.5 years had gone by, and I'm like, because normally like my wrestling weight, I was anywhere from like 220 to like 230-ish or so. I'm like 260, 265, which is the biggest I've been. Oh yeah, my face looked like a basketball. It was, yeah, awful.
So basically what I've been doing since like 2009.
So we
next
got
Monday, I'm telling you.
Next Monday, yeah, I'll go back to the gym. Finally got to a point where I was like, you know what? This was the beginning of like 2011. I was like, I'm not happy with, I don't want that to be a career for me, like where I like kind of ended things there. And I was like, you know what? I got another run, however long it lasts. If I make it back to ROH, which was my goal, be fantastic. It's what I want to do. I think I can get there. I'm pretty sure I can, because I wasn't that old at the time.
Right.
So I, literally went to the gym. I don't know if it was a Wednesday or whatever it was when I decided, but I was like, there's no more next Monday. It's today.
Yeah.
and I just went, cleaned up my diet starting that day, and dropped, I bet I dropped 20 pounds within the first couple of weeks just by cleaning up my diet and getting back in the gym. Within 3 weeks, I think I was down 20 pounds. So I was in that 240 range then. And then it gradually came off. And I guess I started wrestling on local indies there for HWA, which wasn't owned by Les Thatcher at that time. In like March of 2011, something like that. And just then as people saw that I was coming back, I started getting calls from like Ian Rotten and IWA Mid-South and AIW in Cleveland. And that kind of became one of my home promotions there too. From that moment on in 2011 was this John Thorne and the late Chandler Biggins at AIW in Cleveland and stuff. And then started working like on those shows, on those indie shows. Guys would book me against the current ROH guys like Michael Elgin, Davey Richards, guys and they were going back to Cornette and Delirious and was like, hey, dude, BJ's on point. Like, let's get him back here. And they finally booked me their first Cincinnati show, and I guess it was February 2012. And they booked me in it's kind of like what AEW does now with the Eliminator matches. I was booked against Jay Lethal, who was the TV champ at the time. And I forget what they called the match, but if I went to 15 minutes with Jay or beat him, then I would get a future TV title shot. Or whatever.
It's such an indie thing to do.
Yeah, right. But I came in and they wanted us to go down to the wire on that. And I think me and Jay took it down to like 14:55. Like it was right down to the end of it. And Cornette was like, hey, I don't have a spot. When I got to the back, Cornette and Delirious like, look, we don't have a full-time spot for you now, but we'll book you on everything you can drive to until a spot does open up. So I ended up doing they did a show in like Charleston, West Virginia. I would do the Chicago shows, Dayton. There was a few others I did throughout 2012 until Kenny King left to go to Impact or TNA at the time, which opened up a spot for somebody to team with Rhett Titus. So they brought me in September 2012 as Rhett's tag partner. And then I was on everything from there until I left until I went back behind the scenes in 2017 and then left into 2018 to go to AEW.
Okay. And that was a proving ground match.
That's what they called it, proving ground. Yeah.
I'm just I knew they had
I knew they had a phrase or a name for that match.
Right.
Proving ground is what it was. Yeah.
Know it all.
Yeah. So I have to ask, because obviously, kind of 2014, 15, like wrestling tag matches against like War Machine, like that's one of my favorites of all time. So like that had to be awesome.
Yeah. With Hanson and
Ray.
And Ray, yeah. And Ray, I think I had done some stuff with him in Cleveland maybe for AIW. I don't know if it's on there. But I was definitely on some shows with him before he got his spot with ROH. And then when they put him and Hanson together, they just clicked as a team. Those guys got New Japan tours out of the deal. I think they were IWGP tag team champions and stuff like that. So once they put those guys together, those guys just formed an awesome team, and it was kind of off to the races. And it was only a matter of time, especially when I saw they got like the IWGP tag straps. I was like, WWE's going to come calling for those guys because they're both big dudes. They both can move and they can both go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, it's not going to be much longer. And they're probably on WWE's radar right now, like honestly. But it won't be long before that. I think they'll be heading there.
Right. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like going back, for your second run. I mean, yeah, you kind of faced a who's who in your first run, but you also kind of faced a who's who of the next generation almost in your second.
Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly. Trying to think, you can probably, if you named them, I could start.
I mean, you and Roderick Strong had a tag team.
Yeah. Yep. Me and Roddy, me and Jimmy, reconnected with that. Me, Roddy, and Jimmy doing that decade gimmick where we were like, and that kind of like went in a direction that we didn't kind of anticipate because we were kind of like locker room bullies or whatever is what we were portrayed as, and that was the whole time that Richie what was his name, Cognito or whatever from the Dolphins that got in trouble for being a bully. All that stuff's hitting the press, so they kind of like amplified like our bully tactics up, and stuff like that. So, which I thought was kind of cool. I was like, okay, this is something that's going on in pop culture. Let's just attach it to pro wrestling. And we would do stuff on
turn
shows
it up to
like
11.
Yeah, just dial it all the way up. Like, because you always hear stories about a guy getting heat in the locker room and the boys tossing his bag out into the hallway and saying you can't get dressed in here. So we would do stuff on the shows like, I think we were messing with Cedric Alexander at the time or whatever. Maybe it was ACH. And like we threw their bag through the curtain and come through bitching, about them, not being able to get dressed in the back or whatever. Just some stuff like that, which, like kind of like takes what people hear goes on behind the scenes and putting it out there for people. And like we were like asshole bullies for the most part is kind of how that angle ended up transitioning once the Richie what was his name? Was it Cognito?
Richie Incognito.
Richie Incognito, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
One of the most ironic last names of all time.
Right.
He was definitely not Incognito.
Not Incognito at all.
He was very much in the limelight.
Yes, for the wrong reasons.
That made me laugh a little bit.
I thought that like AEW when I first started watching it reminded me of the Ring of Honor that I had first experienced. And I mean, do you get the same feeling, in AEW? Was that why it was easy to kind of like venture that road instead of, up to Connecticut?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look at the guys that, Tony, the talent that Tony grabbed a hold of to form this thing, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega. They kind of took like what guys like Punk and Cabana and Hero and myself, like that generation, and they just dialed it up to 11. Yeah. So they very much kind of like took what we were doing on the independent circuit and just dialed it up. And then those guys also took especially Matt and Nick, took the self-marketing and stuff that Cabana became a master at and dialed it up to 11. I mean, when I talk about those guys, the Young Bucks, you're talking about two guys that were just doing indie shows and just doing New Japan, were able to like self-promote and market themselves and got their T-shirts in every hot topic in America.
Right.
Think about that for a second. They got their T-shirts from just doing nothing but
indie shows.
What is a glorified indie shows, and what at the time was, I don't want to call it a glorified indie, but a step up from an indie with very because the TV that ROH had wasn't a uniform TV show where you can turn on your TV at 8:00 every night on this channel. The way Sinclair utilized that TV is Sinclair upper management went to all the station managers and said, okay, you're going to air this ROH wrestling 1 hour, or actually they would double up. They would air the same show twice every week. You're going to air this 1 hour show twice every week at whatever time you want, but you have to air it. And you have to air it. We don't care when you put it on. We don't care if it's 4 a.m. We don't care if it's 4 p.m. So you had to seek out ROH TV. Like in Cincinnati, it was on Channel 64, which Sinclair owns, at like midnight on Saturday, and again at like 11 p.m. on Sunday. Now, somewhere like Tampa, it might be on at 2 p.m. on a Saturday or a Sunday or something like that. So it wasn't like a national TV. I mean, it was semi-national, but it wasn't a uniform time or place to watch it. So, for Matt and Nick and those guys to be able to get their shirts in every hot topic in America says something to what they were doing.
Right.
So, but yeah, as far as and now that, Tony Khan does own ROH, I think is a really cool thing, because I mean, that's where the majority of, my life's work in the wrestling business is. And for him to own it. I was just
going to ask, actually, how did you feel about that when he bought it?
If it wasn't going to still be owned by Sinclair, I would definitely, and not having never worked for WWE, I'm happy that it's in Tony's hands.
Right.
Like, I think he'll do right by it. I think he's already done right by it. I guess we're getting ready to start doing ROH TV tapings that are going to air on Honor Club, which if anybody wants to watch, I think he's going to have all the old stuff on there. If it's not already on there, he's going to get all the old ROH stuff on Honor Club. So if you're a fan of that crazy false finish, indie sort of wrestling style, that blend of indie and of American indie wrestling and Japanese style, then, you know, a little plug there. I think it's worth the price. You know.
Yes.
Well, I was actually, so I do subscribe to Honor Club, and I was looking for the you and Dan Moff versus Second City Saints, and I can't find it on there.
Okay, that would have been like Death Before Dishonor of
2004.
Yeah.
It's
not on there yet. Okay.
So
yeah, that's where we did the chair riot.
Put a bird in TK's ear. Please put it on Honor Club.
I know he's wanting to get all that old stuff up there. Right. I know part of the problem, I believe, is there's a lot of copyrighted music.
I'm sure.
On there, which is one thing Sinclair was having to go back and do, is edit out all that copyrighted music because nobody wants to get sued over that, and that's a lot of money, you know, that you could lose if you do put that copyrighted music up and you haven't paid for the rights to that music. So that might be because, and I think anything that's not up there yet hasn't had that copyrighted music edited out. I'm fairly certain of that. Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of stuff on there though. Like you could watch for months and months and months and not finish. Like there's all kinds of stuff on there. So.
Yeah, I don't even know how many thousands of hours of content is involved in the ROH library at this point. I mean, Sinclair owned them for 11 years. Previous to that, what was it? 2002 to 11 was 9 years. So there's 9 years of when like Rob Feinstein or Kerry Silken owned it, and then another 10 or something.
Right.
11 of Sinclair owning it. Yeah.
So another thing, like you said, you know, kind of being with AEW at the start, you know, with those guys, how cool is it now to like be in AEW and then you got guys like, you know, Samoa Joe there who you used to wrestle with back when you got your start? Like, is that like kind of like a full circle moment? Like, man, like this is where we're at now. Like, this is crazy type thing.
Yeah, and having those guys come back, like, or not come back, but like circle back around and end up working with those guys again. Because there was a bunch of years where, you know, I might see Joe like once or twice a year. My best friend, or one of my best friends, is Josh Rafferty, who is Jake Hager's MMA coach. Okay. Josh is a Cincinnati guy, grew up with Rich Franklin, was on the first season of The Ultimate Fighter. Met him through the wrestling business. Josh became one of my best friends. He lives in Tampa. So anytime I would be in Tampa to hang out with Josh, we'd try to hook up have lunch with Samoa Joe. Because Josh trained Samoa Joe some, like hitting mitts and stuff like that, and some groundwork, some jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, even some weight training and stuff. He helps train Joe sometimes. So I would try to, you know, I would see Joe, even though we were working in different companies or whatever, maybe once a year or so, I would end up running into Joe through Josh and stuff. But it's cool to now actually see Joe every week, you know, at work and stuff like that. And the fact that, you know, he's still going strong too is amazing, because he had some crazy matches and he went really hard too, you know, for a lot of years. Not only his ROH run, but his Impact run as well. Yes. And his WWE run, you know. The guy's been going hard for a long time.
It just feels like he fits better in AEW than he would in WWE. It just fits his style. There's just certain people, it's like, yeah, I don't know that they would be a fit in AEW, or I don't know if they'd be a fit in WWE. Just
he made it work. He made his style work at WWE. I mean, he had a heck of a run up there, and then I saw it, it would tune in every once in a while and see him doing commentary on Raw, and I was like, oh, that's perfect, you know, transition for Joe as he transitions. And I didn't know if he was planning on transitioning out of the ring then and going ahead and taking, you know, a job as like a commentator or stuff, but it was a natural progression. I thought from what I saw, he was
good at it. He was
natural.
Really good at it.
Yeah. Great talker, and he was a natural at commentary for sure.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that, like, you know, looking at all these old say old matches, but like, you know, matches at the beginning of your career. And then now you're still with these guys, you know, however many years later, and, you know, you both are where you are type thing. And I mean, even when Punk came in, like, that's a guy that, you know, you kind of started with, and like seeing him again, and, you know, Colt Cabana, and, I don't know, I'm probably forgetting a bunch of people, but you know what I mean.
He didn't get over more. That first ROH show I went to, man, Colt Cabana was so over with that crowd.
Yeah,
he might have got the biggest pop of the night.
Yeah, he can get himself over with any crowd. It seems like I don't know what happened, like if they handcuffed him when he went to WWE or whatever for that brief run that he was there. But I mean, Cabana's just a naturally charismatic guy, super charismatic, and can win over a room as a performer like that, dude. Like, and have him like eating out of the palm of his hand that fast. Like, it's just a natural talent and ability that he's got, and he's always kind of had that.
Yeah, that's just
Charisma.
I just think that's got to be, you know, such a cool thing to be like, man, remember when we were doing this when we were 20 and, you know, now we're here type thing.
Yeah, because it's almost like the same group of guys, except now instead of doing it in fairgrounds and stuff, you guys are doing it on the national stage, and it's
in arenas in different cities every week. It's really cool, and you know, just to think, and I was thinking about this and talking to Jimmy Jacobs the other day about this. I ran into Jimmy at Jay Briscoe's service. Jamin Pugh's funeral, and we were just kind of talking, you know, catching up, and it was like, dude, isn't it kind of crazy? Like, you know, some of like our talent, like the talent from our generation, not only are they still going and still top talent in the business, but some of us that are behind the scenes that are in influential positions behind the scenes now, it's kind of cool to think about. You know, you got Jimmy Jacobs is helping to write Impact. I'm a producer at AEW. You know, it's kind of cool, you know, seeing, you know, that Cabana, you know, is still performing and he's doing some producing at AEW too. So it's really cool that, you know, a lot of us, you know, are still very heavily involved. Joe Sanjay Dutt's another guy that was a great talent. And he did some early ROH, but then more went the route of Impact and was there. You know, he's in an influential position as a backstage producer of promos and matches and stuff at AEW now too. So it's even really cool.
You know, like you said, like you got the behind the scenes guys, and then you got, you know, AJ Styles and Samoa Joe that are still winning championships and stuff. So
you know, and like Kevin Owens or Kevin Steen,
Kevin Steen,
and Sami Zayn, El Generico.
Oh my God, dude!
Like that angle.
The fact that you had a match with El Generico against, I can't even remember who the other guy was, but I know Kevin Steen was on the other end. Like
it was probably me and Brent Albright. We were doing a team gimmick there before I left in like 07, 08 at ROH. I think it was probably me and Brent Albright against Steen and Generico. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, like as a fan, has his rise just not been one of the coolest things?
I haven't called a lot of it. I watched the angle from Royal Rumble though, where they had Steen handcuffed up and he stepped in front of him and Roman hands him the chair. He's like, hey, you're gonna let me do it, you're gonna do it, kind of thing. And then he blasts Roman in the back and like,
dude, that place went nuts.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Yeah, the reaction was loud on TV. I couldn't even imagine what it would have been like to been in that arena in San Antonio to hear that pop live.
So
everybody knew it was coming.
Well, we were at Sami Callahan's promotion last Thursday, Wrestling Revolver.
Yeah,
and actually got to watch the ROH Pure title be defended by Wheeler Yuta. That was pretty awesome.
Oh, was he on that show? I guess, because it was right after RTV, wasn't it?
Right after you guys were in Dayton, yeah. But one of the guys that works that promotion, he's actually a wrestler in a local indie down here, FGW.
FGW.
Yeah, okay. FGW. He was at the Rumble, so we were talking to him. And we were like, dude, was that pop as loud as it was on TV? He was like, it was deafening.
I bet.
Just that place exploded.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's Cody Hawk's place up there in Hamilton.
Yeah, Cody's a guy. Yep. He was at Les's maybe a year and a half before I got there. So he was, you know, training every day that I was there. He's one of those guys that I met my first day in at wrestling school. I mean, Nigel McGuinness is another guy that was literally I met my first day of wrestling school. Nigel had been there maybe 6 or 8 months at that point. First day I walked in, and then there was a few other guys. One of them, Rapid Delivery Rory Fox, was profiled on MTV. True Life, I'm a Pro Wrestler.
Oh yeah,
yeah. He was there, and then like Shark Boy was around a lot and stuff like that. The Unibrow Matt Striker. So but Cody's still going, I guess.
The Unibrow Match Striker.
Yeah, we called him that backstage. Like, nobody ever called him that. I don't think that wasn't a moniker or anything he used like that, but he was jacked. He was yoked about 5'9", 5'10", but always super jacked and lean. He was, and
okay,
a really good worker as well.
I got.
Did you ever beat the tar off of Jack Evans?
What's that?
Did you ever beat the tar off Jack Evans? It seemed like every show I went to, someone was beating that poor kid to a pulp.
Yeah, Jack was so, and he was with us there at AEW there at the start, and early on.
I popped
yeah,
for
Jack,
him
Jack,
like, oh my God.
Jack was also, he was so flexible and bendy. You could put him in a Boston crab and damn near get his feet to touch his head, kind of craziness like that. But yeah, what a great high flyer he was, especially for that time. God, he could do some crazy stuff. His body control was that absolutely insane. The way he could land those flips and still
right,
it was just crazy.
Okay, so I got one more for you here. I don't want to keep you here all night. We really do appreciate you being here, though.
Oh, no problem, man. I can keep going
so,
if you need me to.
with the you said ROH is going to tapings here soon. Are you going to be helping with their women's division, or are they kind of giving that to some other people, or how's that working?
I don't know. I think it will kind of I guess we'll really know because I guess we start those in 3 weeks now or something like that.
Yeah, I just heard they're starting soon. I don't
in a few weeks. I'm sure I'll hear more.
Okay.
As we start, and I don't know they're gonna how much crossover talent is gonna be there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we're gonna have a set of specific ROH talent and then have a few AEW folks kind of bleed over,
right, to
kind of lend some star power. ROH, I don't know how any of that talent-wise is going to work. I just love the wrestling business. Love producing matches, whether it's the women's matches, which I'm having a ton of fun, with Jamie and Tony and Britt and all the Saraya and all the girls that I'm working with now. But I've got a chance to work with some there for a while. I was doing a lot of Orange Cassidy stuff.
Okay.
I love working with Orange.
He's a blast to watch.
Yeah, he is and that character is so great. And
I mean, it's just
and then with him, I got.
Is he always on?
Not backstage, no. But once he walks through that curtain, dude, he's Orange Cassidy. And with him, we'll be going over some stuff, and I'll just be like, dude, this is what Orange would do right here. And he'll look over at me. He's like, dude, you're right. He's like, that's exactly what I would do. Right
he's basically Paul Rudd from Wet Hot American Summer, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It's just
that's, did you ever see that? It was a few months ago. Somebody had a sign during one of his matches and it just said Wet Hot American Summer and it had a time and you went to it and it was Paul Rudd's character laying there and just saying whatever.
Whatever.
And it was so perfect. I was like, yes, that's awesome.
And with with him, he can go, and it's the whole character's to draw the bait the guy in, and then boom, boom, and then he's off to the races, kind of thing. One of my favorite matches I've done with AEW was him and Pocket Revolution 2020, right before the pandemic.
Ooh, okay.
Started our last pay-per-view before the pandemic started. I had that match that night, and that was a ton of fun because that was Orange's coming out party kind of thing where they showed that he could hang with guys like Pac, who Pac to me is one of the best in the world right now at what we do. He is amazing, and every match he has is on point. Then I did a lot of
built like a burrito, yeah.
Oh yeah, the V taper on Pac,
just unbelievable,
dude, insane, yeah. Let's see who else. I did a lot of Darby's first TNT title run.
Okay.
Up into the loss with Miro. Darby is one of those guys. Dude, I thought Evans. He's like a Jack Evans. I thought I took crazy bumps and stuff throughout my career. And he's I always took pride in being one of the guys to take one of the bigger bumps on a show. Kind of stupid. And it cost my body a lot. But that's kind of what I took pride in. And he, along that same line, does that all the time. But
that's
he's a lot smaller.
Against Jeff Hardy onto the chairs.
Yeah, I produced that one.
Did you?
Jeff
of course you did.
Yeah, sick man.
Yeah, with the finishes with him missing the coffin onto the apron and then Jeff missing the swanton onto the steps with the steps turned. Yeah, that was me. That was me. Yeah. And then go into the crucifix out of the coffin drop for the finish and stuff. Yeah, God. That was which I, those guys wanted to do that because it was like Darby's almost like a modern day Jeff.
Yeah, I mean that's the comparison that a lot of people make for sure.
And so that was a really fun match to do. Trying to think, I work with Hangman a lot.
Yeah,
I do a lot of Adam stuff. Of course, we have the connection going back to the Decade gimmick and him, being the young boy and stuff like that, right. Doing that whole angle.
Dude, him and Mox, my wife watched with me, and she's like, "Are they really fighting?" And I looked and I was like, "I don't know."
Yeah, I haven't done any of him and Mox together. I've done a few of Mox's matches. I did the ladder match last year where Hangman came with his comeback match when he won the ladder thing in Philadelphia.
Okay.
He got the chip or whatever for the match. I did Adam Page from, was that Revolution last year?
Revolution?
Yep.
Yeah, I did that match. I did Kenny, Adam Page from Full Gear of 2021. Wow. Yeah. That's so like, and a lot of people don't know this, and I don't like put it out there a lot. Some of the matches that I have produced and stuff like that. And I don't know how it got out that I was doing the women's stuff and the women's matches that I did.
You should blame Sean for that. Sean,
I don't know where Sean got that. I know Sean, and friends with him, but I didn't tell him any of that, so I don't know how he got that. But I'm kind of glad he did, because it's kind of cool to,
dude, I'm telling you, there's a lot of people that are just like, man, kudos, like for real, because
thank you.
That you can see, not that women's matches were like bad before by any means, but you can tell just a difference in the like the tempo of it. It's just, there's so much more like intensity in almost every match that is on the card.
Yeah.
And it's
the last two I've done with Jamie, like Jamie and Sheeta from San Antonio late last year.
Geez, yeah.
That one was a lot of fun too. That one was a blast. And then being able to like help freaking Emi Sakura show what she can do, because she was, because she's been around a long time and has had really, really good like epic matches like the one she had with Jamie, but she was kind of doing this comedy gimmick with AEW, the Queen doing the tea party and stuff like that. And TK asked me, he said, and I'm like pulling the curtain back a little bit, he's like, cut back on her comedy a little bit tonight for me. I said, okay. I was like, I want to show you what like she can do, because I knew she could go, and I knew, and Jamie knew it too. Jamie had worked with her in Japan and stuff, and then they went out there and did what they did. That was hard hitting. They were chopped each other like
that. Yeah, bloody. I didn't get to watch it that Friday, but I watched it the day after and was just like, oh my Lord, like, because I knew I had seen Emi do, which also that pops my daughter every time we like watch it. If we ever do watch Darker Elevation and she sees that, she's like, her name's Emi too. She loves that. So,
I'm sure.
But like, I've seen her have matches. Like I'm pretty sure she even had one when the last Cincinnati show we were at. It was a dark match.
The Queen and the T.
Yeah,
it was a dark match though.
But still, like, you can tell that. I mean, some of the matches I've seen her have, it's almost like she's like waiting on the other person to catch up. Like she's almost ahead of that person. Like I know she can go.
Yeah,
and same with like Diamante. Like she's awesome, man.
Dee's another good one. She's another lady that's really good. Kiera Hogan, ton of talent there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we're loaded. Allie, Bunny, whatever you want to call her.
Yep.
She's really good.
Yeah.
Penelope Ford. Like
we get to see that Wednesday.
We got a lot of women that can go. And a lot of talent. So I mean, I'm anxious to see how this year plays out.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I feel like the direction of the women's division is, like you said, definitely on an upward trajectory, and it's really cool that you're a large part of that.
Thank you, awesome. Appreciate that. Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm having, like I said, I'm having a blast. creatively, it's so much fun, and working with people that have that look in their eye where it's just like in that chip on their shoulder, because that's kind of the way I worked my entire career. Cause
you know what that feels like for sure.
Yeah, because like I always, felt like here I am in my mind. I'm some skinny kid from Cincinnati doing something nobody thought I could do. So I always had that chip on my shoulder throughout my entire career. Like I'm getting ready to go out there and I'm going to show what I can do and show that I belong. And so I can kind of relate to, where these women are coming from.
Yeah, that's the AEW definitely seems to be. Sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead. I've been asking a million questions.
It just has that feel of everybody just still goes out there every night and is trying to like prove themselves. Like they're all building. Everybody is wanting to help build that brand, and it comes across like that.
It really does.
More so
everybody
just like self-promoting. It feels like everybody wants. I mean, it serves a double purpose, but
yes.
Feels like everybody loves.
Not only are they trying to get themselves over, they're trying to get that brand over. Mm-hmm. The more successful the brand is, the more money the brand, the more revenue they generate.
Right.
Yep. More money, the more money individual makes as well. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, especially like not even just in the women's division, but like just the utilization of younger talent and kind of their not being like forced down our throats, but given enough of a push and then having a match that just, that's it. Like Wheeler, Daniel Garcia, Takeshita is on his way. I love that. Like they're not getting hot shotted or anything, but they're given enough that you're like, who's this guy? And then they have that match and you're just.
This note right here says, AEW doing good job putting people over in losses.
Yes,
that's one thing it really does. And like add on to what Eric was saying is that you have young guys and you can put them in the ring with somebody who knows gonna win,
right?
And they can still look good. Like wow, it's sometimes it goes to that submission finish where they pass out. They don't give up, but they go so hard till they physically can't. And I mean, I think that's a great tactic to use. That's well used.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and then when done right, like you can get over just as much from a loss as you could if you won the match, kind of thing. It's my feeling on it. Like if done correctly, you can get the person that loses over just as much as you can get the person that won over. For sure.
Well, you got anything else, Mike? I'm sure I'm going to have about 1 million questions once we end this, but
Yeah. If you do, we can do part 2, man. Like,
all right, hey, I am down for that. This has been an absolute blast. We really appreciate you coming on.
You can do a fantasy booking with us.
Oh,
we did a fantasy booking. Man. We did, if you could take any wrestlers, from either brand and then pin them up versus one
against
another.
each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like a super duper forbidden door.
Okay. What'd you guys come up with? Do you guys do one already?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We got it on our channel. We did it with our buddy Dave. He runs the Pro Wrestling Podcast on Instagram and Twitter.
Okay.
He's the one that got CM Punk to comment "duh" on Dax's post or something like that.
Okay.
Remember that? That was him. Yeah.
Okay.
He actually drove down. He's from Chicago. He drove all the way down to the Revolver Show to go to the Revolver Show with us. So that was cool.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Just that an example of how cool this community is. There's some, really out there personalities, but there's also some really, really awesome ones. So.
Oh, for sure.
You got it there, Mike.
I have mine. My first one was Jade Cargill versus Charlotte Flair.
Okay, yeah.
My other women's match was Bianca Belair versus Jamie Hayter.
Bianca's an athlete, boy. She is an athlete, dude. Her and Jamie would be like to be able to produce that match would be awesome.
Let me get my official library out here. Hold on. That has my daughter's stamps all over it.
Nice.
So I did Thunder Rosa versus Becky Lynch. I think that would smack. I think that'd be awesome. So I actually did I fantasy booked a War Games match, but it's an intergender War Games match.
Okay.
And there's no story going into this. I just think it would be awesome.
Okay.
I did, on WWE side, I did the New Day. So Big E, Kofi, Xavier.
Yep.
With Rhea Ripley and Asuka.
Okay.
Against the Elite. So Kenny and the Bucks.
Yeah.
With Jamie and Stat.
Oh, wow. That would be awesome.
AEW's going to wipe the floor with them.
Just saying.
Yeah, that would
I think
be
that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
But I did Charlotte Flair versus Britt. I think that'd be pretty amazing.
Yes, that would be really good too. And like you mentioned the intergender there. That's one thing. I had several, like towards the later part of my career, had several intergender matches that I had a blast doing. I did one with Ruby Soho when she was Heidi Lovelace at AEW. That was really, really fun. Had a blast working with her. I think it was a mixed tag and ROH at like a goofy like Truth Martini's House of Hoopla show or something like that. It was like a Thursday evening show or something at a bar that AAW would run there in Chicago, and it was I forget who the teams were, but I want to say it was like I know I worked with Athena. Ooh. In that match. And then,
I love her too. God, she's awesome.
Yeah, it's another one of the ladies I keep that we forgot to mention there, who's part of that AEW women's roster, who's an insane athlete too.
Well, that's kind of. I think that's kind of why I was asking if you were going to do the ROH stuff too, because I didn't mention her name, but in my head I'm like, oh, if he produced some Athena matches, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I haven't worked with her that much. I think CD has been working with her some.
Okay.
So like talent and producers, like you find somebody you mesh with really well, and you work with them for a while, and then you'll kind of move on, and they'll be like, that's the thing when you've got a coach's room or a producer's room like we've got, and even though like with me, I didn't have like the big money run with like WWE, but I'm still pretty damn good at what I do, and I still think I can offer them something because I do have that
experience.
Modern day indie style and that Japanese style that was blended that does get people over. I mean, it just does, and then you got like Dean and Jerry's another guy who was kind of like one of the first ones to like kind of set himself apart. And we're going back into the late 80s, early 90s with that high flying, quote unquote, indie style, him and Sean Waltman were having those matches in the early 90s that were like kind of groundbreaking at the time because of the style and stuff that they were doing. And then you got like Dean Malenko and Billy Gunn and, Dustin Rhodes and so many of us that have so many different like perspectives that you can add. The talent can kind of hop around to all the different coaches. CD is another one, Colt Cabana, they can kind of hop around and, pick up little bits and pieces here and there. But, when you kind of like set in and find some chemistry with someone, kind of get on a run with them, like I am like kind of with Stat and Britt and Jamie and Tony and kind of like that. And like I told him, like I'll work with you guys till you tell me otherwise. Like I'll be your guy until
I'm here for it, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm having a blast.
All right. Well,
can you tell? I need you to do me a favor. Can you tell Ian Riccaboni that Eric Big Rig Maffey is his #1 fan?
I can do that. I can text him right now if you want me to.
He
loves Ian Riccaboni every time.
I think I will say this: Ian Riccaboni, that dude, especially. I can't remember if it was the first ROH under TK or the. Mm-hmm. It was either Supercard of Honor or was it Death Before Dishonor? It was one of the two.
That was the summer one in Lowell, right? That was FTR Briscoe's 2 out of 3 falls, right? That was the second one, yes.
So that card, he is so good at making everything feel like it matters.
Yes.
Like everything that happens in a match, like down to the way people make their entrances. Like just, he blows my mind. I love him to death. Him and Caprice Coleman together are money. And I love him to death. He's awesome.
Yeah, Ian's awesome. I was lucky enough, fortunate enough that they were letting me do some color for a period of time there until they, settled in. They were trying to find, once Kevin Kelly left and they slid Ian into that spot, and then Steve was kind of doing color and Steve left. So they kind of had an opening there. So I slid into that spot for a little while. So I was lucky enough to call, some ROH TVs and pay-per-views and stuff with Ian. And you're right. He's awesome. He's amazing at what he does. But
and them just keeping, I know he's not on AEW TV every week, but obviously like he is going to be the ROH guy, like any ROH thing. I mean, like I know they flew him into Lexington like that day when they knew that was going to, when Mark and Lethal was going to happen. Like I just think that's awesome. And it, like you said, it makes you feel like TK is going to take care of ROH, and I love that.
Yes, for sure. And then going back, and I will throw this out as a self-promotion plug, I did all 3 of the Briscoes FTR matches. I produced all 3 of the. Yeah, I produced the 3 of those matches. Yeah.
Wow.
No, I didn't have to do a whole lot in those. I mean, the last one. The last one, I was like very heavily involved with the director on the camera shots, because you got essentially what's 2 singles matches kind of going on, because you got the 2 guys chained to each other. So that's why when I got with the producer and the director before, I was like, dude, we're gonna have to split screen this sometimes. Just listen for me to call it and stuff like that, or you guys can go on ahead and split it before I even see it, kind of thing. But Dax and Cash are amazing. And of course, Mark and Jay, I've known those guys since they were teenagers.
Right. I mean, they were there at the beginning.
Buzz heads and basketball shorts.
Yes. The basketball shorts. I even remember those guys when I first started there. They were in the singlets. The red and black singlets. So like, and with that, it was just a lot of it. Those guys had an idea in their mind of what they wanted to do. I would add some transitions here and there for them and stuff like that. But a lot of that was like me just making sure that the director had his cameras where they needed them, and stuff like that. But so that's kind of a feather in my cap, being able to say, I was able to do 3.
Those are all 3 beautiful.
Those are 3 of the greatest tag matches I've ever seen in my entire life. So
that was tag team wrestling at its finest, and that's those guys, those 4 guys. That's their gift to pro wrestling.
It really was. Is. I mean, you want to, I don't want to get into too much, but just what just trilogy. Not just for like, that year in pro wrestling, just of all time. Like that is a trilogy that is going to be talked about. And I know like Dax talks about it all the time, leaving a legacy. All 4 of those guys, that right there, you can hang your hat on that stuff.
Yeah. And the Briscoes as a tag team have such a legacy.
Right.
Outside of that too, this just is like icing on the cake.
Exactly. It's the freaking cherry on the icing on the cake. I mean, for the career they've had. And then they're like, we're going to top it off with this. Like just that's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah. So being able to, work with Mark and Jay again like that was so cool, because I've been tight with those guys for so long. Hanging out with those guys, even behind the scenes and stuff like that, doing international trips with those guys and stuff.
Right.
So that's something that I'll cherish for the rest of my life, especially with Jamin's passing and stuff like that. Like that's something that I will definitely, being able to, be in the room with those guys and be out of the ring with those guys, and helping those guys with those matches is something that I'll cherish till I take my last breath.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, I can't even imagine the relationship that you had, obviously with both of them, but especially with Jay's passing. I mean, you were there with him from the beginning, and just I can't imagine how much, like you said, share it. I'm stumbling over my words. I'm trying to think of the right thing to say. Just how much that you're just like thank God I have that with them type thing. Yeah,
absolutely. And just have a little piece of those, that trilogy with those guys, and the fact that, they wanted me, especially after the first one, like, yeah, dude, you're going to do the next one for us too. And that was like, hell yeah. Like I'll take that compliment any day.
Yeah,
You know, that's
for
a compliment
sure.
enough saying, hey, we want you. And then by the time it rolled around to that last one, it was like, yeah, you've had the first two. You're our guy at this point for this last one.
Yeah, compliment from those four like that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, we are right around the 2 hour mark right now. Yeah. So you called that, BJ, right at the beginning. You're like, oh, 2 hours.
Yeah, dude. Once I get talking, man, it's hard to shut me up.
I'm the same way. We all me and Mike both are. So,
and honestly, anytime you guys want to shoot the shit like this, dude, if you guys want to do like a post show, like a week after a pay-per-view or something like that, touch base, like I'm willing to come on anytime, especially, me and Mike going back, high school together. I used to run around with his cousin Matt all the time. The Stink of Steve's is his cousin Matt. I mean, I haven't seen him probably since like shortly after high school at this point, but
still lives in the same house.
Yeah, still, that's what you were saying.
Yeah, still, looks about the same. Yeah,
looks about the same. You have to tell him I said hello. You have to tell him I said hello. But yeah, anytime
I'll be tickled by
you guys just reach out. Like I said, if you guys want to do like a post pay-per-view show or anything like that, I'm willing to help out and lend whatever, might increase your following at all, whatever. I'm willing to,
Dude, honestly, just having you on here to talk, I could care less if 2 people watch this. I, as a fan of pro wrestling, just love learning about this stuff. I think it's so awesome. And not to peel the curtain back too much, but just knowing, man, that's what went into that. That's, I just think that's
it just makes
so
you
cool.
appreciate it even more. To me, it's like knowing, knowing what other work is, put into to all that. And it's, having the guys backstage that with all that experience. I mean, I told you earlier, it was like you've rubbed shoulders with who's who of, who's been in wrestling and who's in wrestling now, man. That's it's incredible.
Yeah, and like I said, even just a skinny kid from Alexandria, Kentucky, man, Campbell County High School grad, that chased that was, either too stupid or too crazy to not chase a childhood dream, and I went after it, and I was just lucky enough that I had a talent and a knack for it, and I stuck with it long enough. Because a lot of times, like with ROH, I wasn't making a whole lot of money. I was making ends meet, living hand to mouth a lot and stuff like that. I ended up getting my payoff and, stuff like that afterwards, and I'm getting that now. My payoff came, post in-ring career for me, which, I'm thankful for sure. Thank you. And I was just, I tried to, especially when I knew, like I said, like the neck injury, the ACL injury, and I knew the sand in the hourglass is running through like a freaking sieve at this point, and I know my days are numbered. So, and I had started when I started back with ROH, started kind of trying to learn the intricacies of TV wrestling at that point. Once those 2 injuries happened, and I'm going to nursing school at the same time, but I'm fully immersed at this point in trying to learn everything I can about wrestling, because I know I've got the nursing degree to fall back on, but dude, the worst day at this pro wrestling job is better than the best day of being a nurse. And being a nurse is a good career, but this is like my childhood dream. This is what I dreamed about.
Is it even like work, really? You're as much fun as it sounds like you're having. Is it even work?
It's not. It's really not. Like, it is work, but it doesn't feel like work. Right? It's amazing, dude. This is amazing feeling. Yeah. And I get to get on an airplane every week, like kind of thing. But I mean, the travel can wear on you. For me, I love the travel. Like, I don't mind, living out of a suitcase a couple times a week. Like I was telling somebody, because they just announced we're going to start doing live events.
Right.
And I was telling them, like, I don't mind being on the road as like a road agent or whatever to help, like, set up the cards or whatever needs to be done for these shows and stuff like that. I was like, dude, I'm home 3 days in my apartment, and I'm like staring at the walls, like, can I get out of here? Like,
right. Like, can I go do something?
2 days. I'm like, can I pack my suitcase and go to the airport? Like, This is what like I get stir crazy when I'm at home. So I don't mind living out of hotels, a few days a week, several days a week at that, so the travel, I don't mind at all. I love it. I love being able to go, all these different states, being in a different city every week, is really cool. And
I say if you can fill a house for a house show, then by all means you should be doing it because, like you said, the more successful you become, the more people get paid, and
the more money gets generated by the company, the more money the employees and the talent make. So I'm anxious to see how these house shows. I know we're doing our first one just north of Dayton in a little town called Troy, Ohio, which is like 20 miles north of Dayton. Which that arena is not a really big arena. I think it's like 3,500, maybe 4,500 people. It's not a really big arena. So I'm anxious to see how that goes and see how often we're going to do these. I think that was the only one announced in the press release because they sent the press release to my work email and I read through it, but I didn't see any others listed yet. So it's going to be cool to see how that plays out though. Cause I know I was interested to see if it's going to be interesting to see if there's a market for live events, non-televised live events. Cause it's not like going to the TV show where you got the big screens and the fireworks and the flames and stuff like that. It is a different experience for sure.
I mean, I'll say this:
you got to at least try.
Yeah, right.
I've been to 4 AEW live shows. I went to the first Cincinnati show. I went to Beach Break in Cleveland. I went to Columbus, which was like 2 weeks before All Out.
Yep.
And then the second Cincinnati show. So I've been to 4.
The one at the big arena at Heritage Bank.
The one at Heritage Bank, yes.
Because the first one we did was at UC.
At UC. Yep. And, dude, every one I've been to, it feels like – it doesn't even feel like it's a TV tape. Like, it feels like a party to me.
Really?
Like,
the
cool. Energy and everything. Like, you just feel like, man, this is –
It's like an indie crowd because like when you go to an indie wrestling show, all those people are legit wrestling fans. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And the difference in crowds between WWE show and the AEW show, it is a lot more of that crowd. There are some more casual fans, but AEW feels like it's a wrestling show for wrestling fans.
Oh yeah, you see guys walking in with faded Bullet Club Young Buck shirts that they've had since 2014 or whatever. Like that crowd, that is the crowd right there.
Right. Well, that's cool to know because I don't get to experience it from that end. Like sometimes, if I know something cool's gonna happen, I'll like kind of come out through the curtain, like where the stage is by the side of the stage, and kind of come out a few steps towards the crowd to hear the energy and the reaction of something cool that's going to happen, but I don't get to actually set up in the stands to be fully immersed in it like that and to actually sit there for the whole show and see what the crowd is like and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool to know that it almost has that like indie vibe to it where these people are here because they love wrestling.
Yes, that is exactly what it feels like.
That's awesome.
Like I remember being in Cleveland and it was when Danhausen debuted during OC versus Adam Cole.
He pulled him out from under the ring.
And the place goes nuts. And I'm like, everybody here, like at least 90% of the people here know who he is. Like I was going nuts. The guy I was there with was like, who the hell is this? Like, what is going on? And I was like, we got a 4-hour drive back to Northern Kentucky. We'll watch some Danhausen videos,
Right.
Full disclosure, he fell asleep about a half hour outside of Cleveland. But
they let you slept on the drive home. I'll let you drive it.
Well, I'm a night owl anyway, so I didn't mind.
Okay.
But it definitely, I think that those live shows, because you're not really going to need to, I got to hit my mark for TV, man. You can make those so much fun for those crowds. That I think they're going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm hoping that like the following is there and enough people buy tickets that it makes it worth their while to do them, for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that's and doing it in Troy too, close to Mox. That's a good call.
Yeah, somewhere where like local Cincy people can get up there. It's not going to be a super far drive, maybe an hour for them for the Cincy crowd, maybe a little less. So
that does remind me though. Did you? So I went to the Columbus show, and that was the tag with Tony and Thunder versus Jamie and Britt. Did you produce that?
No, that was before I started working with Jamie and Tony. Britt,
that match was awesome too. That's why I was wondering. Which also I love when they don't, and I'm not going to get into this too much, but just like maybe they are the second or third match on the show. You know, I like when they mix it up. It especially because it seems like when they do put them on earlier, like you said, they have the chip on their shoulder, and it's like, let's go extra hard right here.
Yeah,
let's really tear it down. So
yeah, the San Antonio one, the Jamie Sheeta match being the main event, that was like, and I had pulled the curtain back a little bit. I went and asked the week before, like, hey, is it possible to have the main event for that, you know, for Jamie Sheeta? And I was told possibly, maybe make it happen. And I got there that day, and they're like, yeah, it's happening. And I was like, hell yes.
Good call.
Yes,
well deserved too. They showed out.
Yeah, and then that's
Sheeta's another one. G. Manatlee, man, she is
so
awesome. Good.
Yes, so good, and yeah, she's really fun to work with.
I'm gonna say this for Mike. This is more like jokingly than anything, but can we have some more Serena Deeb on our television? I know Mike's a big Deeb mark.
Where the hell's the professor been?
I don't know if she's injured right now. It's like,
yeah, I don't want to get into anybody's personal thing. I'm just doing that for Mike because I know he loves Serena.
Yeah, Serena's awesome too, and she must be injured or something because I haven't seen her work for a while. So,
okay,
but she'll be back soon enough, I'm sure. But yeah, she's another one that just adds to that women's division as well. Like this, and I know I've probably forgotten a few names, but yeah, all those ladies have something to prove. They got a chip on their shoulder, and it's going to be fun to continue to work with them throughout this next year. Expect big things.
Because she was at the Cincinnati show, wasn't she? She had a dark match,
remember I made it because they caught me on camera dancing to her music.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he was going nuts for that. Yeah. I was going nuts when Eddie Kingston came out. You know, we all got our favorites.
Yeah, Eddie's awesome. Eddie is awesome.
That's my guy, man. Like if I had to pick one, Eddie's my dude. I love Eddie so much.
Like so much like heart and passion when that guy talks and when he works. Like it's
I love the realism.
It's amazing.
Comes across total authenticity, man.
Because that's Eddie. That's Eddie. That's real. That's Eddie. You know, and he's awesome. And he like for his where was Full Gear, wasn't it? Was it the pre-show match? Him and Akiyama.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He asked me to produce that because
you produced that too.
That day, yeah.
Oh my God! Come on, man!
That's a dream match for Eddie. He was. That's where he took the mic and told the crowd, "I don't give a shit." I
got 5 minutes. Buy the pay-per-view.
Yeah. He can't pick me for that because he knew how much Akiyama meant to me as a performer. Like I stole a ton of his offense, for my offense when I had those first 2 tours. Exploders, the wrist clutch exploder, the running knee, like a bunch of stuff, I took from Akiyama. So he knew how much Akiyama meant to me as a performer. So he's like, dude, you're the only guy I'm going to have produce this.
Oh, wow.
Today.
I'm not kidding when I say I watched that match 3 times in a matter of 2 days. I'm pretty sure I watched it twice in one day.
Yeah, Akiyama's all
running down his eyes.
All time.
It was
great,
so
man.
good.
Yeah.
Well, you're now my favorite producer ever,
I appreciate that. Yeah.
I'm so jealous. That's so incredible. It's like, got that Midas touch right now, my friend.
Well, thank you, man. I just, I have so much passion for this. It's my life's work. It honestly is. And like I said, I just knew I wanted to be around wrestling, especially as a kid, this would be so much fun to be, and then you get to be an adult. Like I said, I got away from wrestling for a while because it got silly, but then it got cool again, and it was like, I want to try this. And once I got a taste of it, it's almost like an addiction. Like I didn't want to do anything else, and I had like I said, part-time jobs to help support my wrestling habit there for a while until I got to where I could make enough money to make ends meet, kind of thing. So, but yeah, just and I want to, and this may sound silly, but leave the business in a better place, and
Absolutely.
Stuff like that, and then make my mark, now behind the scenes and do everything I can to help, and that be my legacy is the people whose career I'm impacting right now. And if they can go on to be like producers and stuff like that, that will be the mark that I've left, is kind of the way I look at it.
That could be something down the line that, I don't know, Tony Storm's producing women's matches when she's 60 years old, and she's like, "Hey, who helped me? BJ Whitmer." When my daughter's got a podcast or something, who knows? Whatever.
Right.
This is my fantasy booking mind going wild.
Right. And it's funny you say that because the other week at not this past dark taping, but the dark taping before that, Tony lives there in Orlando, and she came over. She was still wasn't cleared from the orbital fracture.
Okay.
From the match with Jamie, and she shouted me to learn the producing job and stuff like that.
That's so cool.
That day, yeah. So if I can, if they want, because I know with me, I didn't want to do anything but do something in the wrestling business after I was a performer. I wanted to stay involved, and
right.
If I can kind of pass down that to anybody that wants it,
right?
Then that'll be the legacy that I leave.
You just kind of show them that you don't necessarily need to, all right, I guess I'll just go do signings at conventions and stuff. You can do stuff after you've done wrestling. And
yes,
like you said, contribute, maybe you're not in the limelight, but being a part of some of these matches, man, that's something that you get to take with you. And
then and a lot of times, it doesn't get out what matches I produced, but
I didn't know half of them.
Right. Because I don't go out online and say, "Yeah, I produced this, I produced that." But the fact that the guys or the women in that moment know that I had a little piece of that, and that I had a little piece of that, that's good enough for me.
That's all that matters. For
it's
sure.
Good enough for me,
And it would. I know me personally, that wouldn't be the way I would go about it. I mean, I've never been I need everybody to know exactly what I'm doing all the time. I know, if I know that I did good on something, that's all I need.
Yeah.
I don't need everybody else to know. Don't care.
Yeah, I know.
Giving back to the business since your second run. You said you came back, and you kind of, came back and helped put over a lot of the next generation of guys.
Yeah, for ROH,
giving back for a while.
Yeah, for sure. They're helping guys Cedric, Alexander, with that run, because he was the protagonist to one of the protagonists to a decade being the antagonist kind of thing. ACH and Adam Page and some of those guys and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been like you said, just trying to give back, because I know that people that pass knowledge down to me, they didn't have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I always go back. Here's another quick thing before we wrap up here. My first couple of tours of Pro Wrestling Noah, I was on with Too Cold Scorpio, which is a guy that I had watched on TV and stuff like that. And he was so cool and so giving with the knowledge that he had and stuff like that. And not just that, but here I am, a 23-year-old kid in another country, and he's, had done tours off and on for years at this point. So he would, make sure we knew where the restaurants were by the hotels and stuff like that, would take us, to go eat and stuff like that. And, he didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
He could have went and done his own thing, but he looked out for us and stuff like that. And I was like, dude, this is so cool with him. And I always remembered that. I never forgot that. And if I got into a spot where I could help out someone that was coming into the business and just pass along any little thing or help them out in any way, I always tried to do that. And even to this day, if I was to even years later, I'd run into Scorpio on an indie show. And if we went out to eat afterwards, I'd buy his meal just for the simple fact of what he did for me when I was this 22, 23-year-old kid. Just try to give back that. So
and that's what's important. And I think, like you said, you just want to leave wrestling better than you found it. And if today's product is any representation of that, you're doing all right. And
thank you, buddy.
So are a lot of others, I think, as well. It seems like it's heading in the right direction.
I think so. But yeah, anytime you guys want to shoot the shit and chat on your podcast,
I ain't gonna say no to you coming on after Revolution.
You're gonna have to be like, Mike, please.
Especially
if
my booking comes through.
If I don't know if they'll do it that quick because we're only 4 weeks out from.
No, I know
Revolution at this point.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah.
But if it does happen, and you want to come on after it happens, by all means,
absolutely. Yes. If you guys want to do, like I said, post show for Revolution, whatever. If there's something cool you see on Dynamite and want to chat about it, man, I got no problem coming in.
Yeah,
and just sitting there. It costs me nothing to sit here and shoot the shit about wrestling, which I love to do. I can talk wrestling all day long.
Awesome, us too.
You know,
you know, obviously you provide such a unique perspective, so you get to kind of answer some of the lingering questions for stuff that nobody else can answer for us. So
yeah, absolutely. I got no problem doing that, man.
Hey, have you ever met anybody from that you were a fan of as a child, for wrestling? You ever met anybody that just ruined it for you? They say never meet your heroes. And I can't say that I've met anybody famous yet that's done that for me. But have you met anybody in the business that's?
No, not really. No, not most everybody I've met, especially having a working relationship with, and I would never go do even when I was a fan, I never would go to signings and stuff like that. I never did go to anything like that. But most of the people I've met has been as coworkers, so it's kind of a little bit different,
right?
Than meeting as a fan. And I know that some people, I've heard stories of people being dicks to fans or whatever, and being like, "Oh, here's your autograph. Go on, move out of the line. Next person." Sign,
but some of the fans probably prompt that too.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they're not innocent.
And that makes it hard to be a fan because you don't want to be.
You don't want to be that person.
That guy.
Yeah. So no, I haven't really met anyone that's ruined.
Well, you get to work with Sting. That was your guy.
Yeah.
You're good to go.
Yeah. For sure.
Well,
what
do you think, BJ? I don't know Sting.
Yeah. What do you think about this spot? Talking to me?
Talking to me? What?
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
All right. Well, this BJ Whitmer has been fantastic, and you are welcome back on absolutely anytime. We would love to have you.
We'll keep in touch, Mike.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Wonderful insight.
Thank you for having me, man.
Give any shout outs or anything, you're more than welcome to. If not, I can't really think of anything else. Mike,
I'm not really on social media or anything like that, so I got nothing to really. Just watch Dynamite Wednesday nights, TBS 8 p.m. Watch Rampage TNT 10 p.m. Watch the product. Watch all wrestling. Grab Honor Club if you're an ROH fan. Sign up for Honor Club. The weekly TVs will be on there. I'm sure the pay-per-views will also be on Honor Club. I can't say that for sure.
The most recent ones are. I can confirm that.
Okay, and I don't know if the future ones are going to be on the Honor Club Live, or if you've got to get them through your cable or satellite provider, or if it's Bleacher Report or what it is. You have to get.
I don't know. They're changing a lot of stuff because I used to get them on Fight, but they changed it because I guess they're doing something with DAZN now or something.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know. And I think that's more with AEW programming rather than.
Yeah, it's something international. They're doing something with them.
I just ousted myself. Never mind. I don't use a VPN. I don't live in Lithuania.
The FBI.
Oh, good.
So anyway, we have been the Dad World Order podcast. This has been BJ Whitmer. BJ, has been absolutely fantastic to have you on here. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much, man.
I'm sure we'll do it again soon.
Sounds like a plan.
I would say probably after Revolution at the earliest, unless something really awesome happens on Dynamite, then we'll have you on even sooner. So.
Cool. Sounds like a plan, fellas.
Appreciate you. Guys, if you like this video, please give us a like, subscribe. This man is an absolute wealth of knowledge, and I had an absolute blast here. So please, if you'd like to, just give us a like, comment, whatever. We appreciate you. Top Dads, out.
Dad, World Order.